I'm your host, Tired Runner. It's okay, I ate breakfast this morning. I just finished, which is why I'm a little bit late. Spent most of this morning working on the website, actually, believe it or not. And, whoops, I have random news on there twice. Because I had a lot of updates to the old website to do. You probably won't even notice. In fact, if you go look at the website right now, I would guarantee you the vast majority of you will not notice anything different. But I manually went through the Premier Run funding list and cleaned it up, basically. Cleaned up the colors, cleaned up the numbers, cleaned up the games that are there. Basically just went through and polished it. So, of course, I wouldn't be surprised if you guys don't notice anything, but it's a lot easier for me to actually tell what's going on and to keep things organized. And, of course, I updated the spreadsheet I have locally as well, which is now a lot more organized and a lot more clear. Now, that being said, any astute observers might notice there's some games that are missing now from the list that have basically just been cut. There's some games that are Tizara. Those have been added. And there's also some, excuse me, there's some color changes is probably the other big one. That's because we've kind of redefined the color system because we had to. You guys, like, I basically ran out of colors. There's only so many colors I have access to when it comes to that plugin. So in short, I only have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 categories of priority. So I had to redefine those priorities because Doom Eternal, Enderal, and Pathfinder Kingmaker have so many people who have put money towards it that I had to basically stretch out the definition of the colors rather than just, you know, keep it going out. So a lot of things have been pushed down into blue, several things have been pushed into green, and several other things have been pushed up to acknowledge that. Anyways, why not make another color? I physically can't. Again, I'm limited by the plugin. I got 6 colors. That's it. That being said, since we're in random news section, one of the things I've been thinking about doing, and we're not actually really going to discuss this until we get to Phase 2, but one of the things I've been thinking is removing the bars system. I think the bars system is pretty good myself. No, Dream Whisperer. Well, here's hoping that things get better in a fast hurry, Max Time, because damn it, I look younger today. It's probably the new glasses. Which are working out fine, by the way, if for anybody curious. They not only fit and are much more comfortable than the old glasses, and I don't mean the old ones that didn't fit, I mean my older glasses. They also are really helping with the headaches. I actually haven't had a headache attack since I switched, so that probably means at least some of the headaches I was having on a regular basis were because of the glasses. That's good. That's actually really good. So anyways, but yeah, so we've redefined the colors, we've redone that. We'll probably talk more about the streaming stuff in a moment. Gotcha, Max Time. Well, yeah. Oh! The mantra thing. Right, Dream Whisperer. Yes, I did actually get your message. Sorry. I actually kind of forgot about it because I myself actually spent some time last night experimenting and getting some mantras and came up with some ones. Well, I haven't actually had a chance to plug any of them in, but I'll be doing that and organizing my mantra list as well. So, how many of you guys remember the General series of video games back in the day? Yes, you're not getting a pin, Scene. I've decided that I hate you with violent passion. They're sitting on my exercise bench right over there. All except for Platy's, which is right here. Because I don't have a printout label for hers yet. But it'll be happening. Don't worry. No, not Command & Conquer. No, Generals. It was actually arguably some of the earliest tactics, strategy games I ever got into. I've said before that Command & Conquer 1 and Warcraft 1 were the first, but that got me in. And then I started looking around, and there was this whole series of Generals games, like If and But there. By the way, I'm sorry, thank you very much to Zara. I didn't say thank you earlier. Thank you very, very much to Zara. As ever, much appreciate your support. Would you or Platty like to decide where that goes towards? And thank you very, very much, If and Bud. As ever, much appreciate your support. No, I didn't get in Dune 2. I did play Dune 2, but I came into the strategy genre with Warcraft 1 and Command and Conquer. But goes towards Battlefleet Gothic. Where can you pay? Not there yet. We're not talking about pins yet. Anyways, so Fantasy General. So there was like Panzer General 2. There was a really basic one that was basically supposed to be like a lead-in game, which I actually liked a lot. I can't remember what it's called right now, but it was really good. So noted, Platty. Thank you very much again. Now, there was Space General, I think, or Star General. And it was Star General. That was it, which was set in space, which is actually free now. It's abandonware. You can just go download it if you want to. But then there was Fantasy General, which is one that I really got into. Like the Count over there. And I didn't really get into the Count that much. I mean, I kind of get into the Count, but, you know, there's limits, right? Thank you very, very much, the Count, as ever. Much appreciate those subs. Thank you. Hey, Anthony. So, Fantasy General, I don't actually remember the specifics, if I'm being completely honest, because it's been a long time, but something about Fantasy General really fascinated me, something about the story, and it kept me playing until I hit the point where I couldn't anymore, because that game is ridiculous. But as I was pushing through that game, I remember, I never forgot it, you know? So anyways, you might wonder why the hell I'm bringing this up. Fantasy General 2 is coming out. They're actually making a sequel to the Generals series, like, 20 years later now? To my knowledge, this is the first game in the Generals series since then. I could be completely wrong, but it's just fascinating to me that they're actually continuing the series. So Fantasy General 2, it looks really great, actually. I'm kind of looking forward to it. 96, yeah, there you go. So yeah, it has been a couple of years, one or two. I'm really excited about that. We'll see what it goes. We might add it to the Premiere Run list. That's up to you guys. As ever, we're not adding the Premiere Run list yet, for reasons we'll get to when we get to streaming news. Speaking of random news, I'm not going to make a whole thing about this. I just want to mention that Jedi Fallen Order, we have more information on it now. The first and most important bit of information we have about Jedi Fallen Order is that it's set during the Dark Times. And the second bit is that it's coming out in November 15th. You will be playing a surviving Padawan, and that surviving Padawan survived the Purge. Unlike Gavel. Gavel did not survive the Purge, unfortunately, which is really a shame. But the good news is, because Gavel didn't survive the Purge, he was able to ensure that the future moved on. Thank you very, very much, Gavel. As ever, much appreciate your support. Would you like to put that sub towards something, especially now that we've updated the website a little bit? You play a surviving Padawan. There's actually another Jedi who survives, too, as kind of your mentor, which is just kind of weird. They have committed to showing off new planets rather than the typical... You know, there's like 20 Star Wars planets we just see over and over and over and over and over, right? So they're trying to show off new planets, which I'm in favor of. It's actually one of the very few things that I really liked about Tor. You got it, Gavel. Let me jot that down really quick.
Of course you follow me. They all do.
I'm pretty sure that's a... common perspective right now, Hazardous, but we'll get there. We'll get there. And now, scene. Everybody, I'm not going to get. You know, I'm going to finish talking, then I'm going to look at scenes donation. It's set during the Dark Times. We're playing a Padawan. We have a Jedi learner. We're going to be dealing with the Purge Troopers. Some of you may remember this from the comics. It's going to be single player with no multiplayer service. It's going to have no microtransactions. It's going to have no loot boxes, and it has Stig Asmussen, who's working as director, who you might remember from God of War 3. We'll see how that turns out, I suppose. Oh, it'll be AU. Of course it'll be AU. Oh, yes, and of course he's working in salvage. He's a salvage worker. And he'll be hunted by one of the Inquisitors, who was actually from Rebels, from what I understand. So this is a game that is set in an interesting period of history, set in the AU, directly following through the events of one of the movies, acknowledging the events of the show, and... It's also written by Chris Evelyn. Sorry, I forgot to mention that part. Yeah. It seems they really are committing to this whole actual continuity thing in the AU, and if I'm not mistaken, this is one of their first real forays into proving that. Because while Rebels has actually been relevant when it comes to the movies in several respects, Star Wars Solo comes to mind immediately, this is the first time they've shown a game that really coincides with the story of the movies and the shows. Now, I know what you're going to say. What about Battlefront 2 EA? Anyway, so, as I've said, we'll see how they actually pull this off. No, I haven't actually gotten to Rebels yet. Oh my god, I'm never going to get to it. Thank you very, very much, Loffit. As ever, much appreciate your sub. And welcome to the Year Club. Now let me see what hang on. I have many tabs over now. Let's see what Seen donated towards really quick. Okay. Thank you very, very much, Seen. That's not even up on the website yet, for reasons I'll be getting to in a minute, because I'm actually talking about that today. But because I'm nice, I will jot that down. And thank you as ever, Seen. Yes, these are hopefully the final glasses to Koido. I've actually had these for a little over a week at this point. We'll see, Hazardous. We'll see. Will I be doing a Mini-Nation on Rebels? Yes, I don't know when. Right now, my schedule, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but I've been streaming literally every single day for over a month now. I have absolutely zero time to do Mini-Nations right now. The only reason I've even been able to stream this much is because I worked my ass off and put in 80-hour work weeks in order to get a backlog going for YouTube. Funnily enough, I plan to talk about Crunch today, too. You'll notice it's one of the things, so... Everyone just keeps asking me questions about things I already planned to talk about today. Thank you, Tizara. As ever, much appreciated. I'm assuming I know where you want to put that, but please feel free to clarify. Now, how am I not nice? What else? I'm looking forward to it. We'll see. It's probably going to be a Premiere Run. We're not adding it to the Premiere Run list. Please don't put it towards the Premiere Run list. Please. Please. Respect the list. Can we skip talking about Episode 9? No. We might also bring up Episode 8. You know why I know that? Because I'm pretty sure of the discussion, of the like 400 lines of discussion in my Discord when the trailer went live, I'm pretty sure about 90% of it was about The Last Jedi, and the other 10% was actually about the next, Episode 9, so we'll see. So that was 15 additional from Tizara. There we go. A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about pin news. Let's go ahead and move forward to an actual topic here. Apparently, Joludo. Am I lifting my rule about Episode 8? So, funny fact, for those of you who haven't heard the news about this before I actually jot this down, Episode 8 isn't actually a forbidden topic anymore. It's just a forbidden rumination, if that makes any sense. In other words, I basically just pulled down the forbiddenness of it, and I moved it so it's no longer a controversial topic, because people started getting a lot more reasonable about it, especially in our Discord. That was the main thing that was. So it's okay to talk about it, as long as you don't violate Rule 0. As long as you don't violate Rule 0, we're all good. Don't be a dick. That's really all it is, right? As long as you can actually be respectful towards each other, whatever. Now, that being said, it is still absolutely on the forbidden rumination list. There's a reason I put up a rumination on it for April Fools, which was admittedly intended to make people laugh, because that's, in my opinion, the whole point of April Fools, rather than giving us false hopes of the entire Zelda series being put on the Switch. No, I'm not letting that go. Because a real rumination on The Last Jedi is something that I absolutely cannot do. There is no way to even bring up that film without, in an open public forum, in the internet, without it turning into a mess. So, pin news. Let's talk about that first. Basically, it wouldn't even be... Oh, God, God, Retro Justice, that sucks. I'm sorry. Basically, if we were to do a sequel trilogy rumination, we would completely skip it, yes. Unless it happens in like 5 years when people have finally chilled. That's all that is. Not happening. So, that being said, we might do a private rumination about it. It's something that's slowly been occurring to me as an idea of doing private ruminations, because I've got 2 upcoming things for ruminations that I might be willing, like I would actually like to talk about. I would like to ruminate on. But I absolutely do not want to ruminate on publicly because the internet is the internet. So we might do like a patron-only kind of rumination thing. I don't know, I'm still debating that, but let's get to the frickin' pin news, shall we? So some of you may remember that we're doing these pin things, right? As I said, this is Platty's package right here. Now, I have a bunch of pins over there who are ready to go. I actually am waiting on... I don't know, Baron. I never decide before I actually do it. I have a bunch of pin... so, I have spent some time and work trying to streamline this process because spending 40 minutes standing in UPS causes me so much pain, I needed to take half of a hydrocodone when I got back home. I'm not saying that for sympathy, I'm just saying that's unacceptable. Now, the good news is I have been able to streamline this process to the point where I don't have to do that. I'm actually paying online and getting the packaging slips and all that done and printed out, and then I just smack a packaging slip on this, and then I just drop it off on UPS. 5 minutes rather than 40. So that's good, because for a bit there I was thinking I'm going to have to discontinue this, but I figured it out. We're cool. I have an account set up. We're all ready on that. Couple of snags. First of all, obviously, you might wonder why I keep waving this one around. That's because it needs a packaging slip. Those are supposed to arrive today. And once those arrive, I'll be good to go to ship quite a few of those. These will also include our Canada shipments. We have, I believe, 3... I'm not going to name names, obviously, but we have 3 people who wanted pins who are in, excuse me, Canada. Those are being shipped as soon as I get those packing slips. Also, the rest of the United States shipping that I have currently will also be in that bundle, including this one right here. That will be every order I've received, except for the ones that are outside of the United States and Canada. This is what we need to talk about. So the Canada shipments are about $22 each. I'll just go ahead and tell you that right now. The States shipments are around 10 to 15, depending on where it's going. The lowest I've been able to get it down to for shipping anywhere outside of the continental U.S. is $35 just for shipping. Now, I'm still not even 100% sure of actually making that happen. That's just me looking into it. I haven't actually committed to any of that yet, because I needed to ask you guys about exactly that. $35 per shipping is a pretty pricey sum, and there's nothing I can do about that. That is as low as I've been able to get that. So, what we have to decide is basically a few things. So for those of you who are international people, you don't have to obviously give names or whatever, but if you want to toss an email at me, again, I have all those emails and I have all your orders right there on a document. It's up to you, first of all, if you want to go ahead and... it's up to you guys if you want to go ahead and commit to that. If you want there to actually be a shipment to you. Now, I know, Dream Whisperer, you've confirmed that. You're the only one who has confirmed that of our international shippers. I actually have a jot down here by you. But we need, let's see, hang on. I'd say I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 international shippers. That sounds weird. 9 people who want pins internationally. 3 from the United Kingdom, and then 5 miscellaneous. I say that because none of them are in the same country. Only one of those has committed. Only one of those has said, yes, I absolutely want this. There's another problem here. The other problem is the way we're doing the payment method. Because the way we're doing the payment method is everyone kind of chips in. Like, I haven't told you guys how much the shipping, this whole project has cost yet, because I don't know. I'm not done yet. I am basically doing, as I've said when I first announced this, we are doing the inverse of usual billing method. I do everything and I figure out the costs, and then I bill you for the total costs. I did a little looking into that, by the way. Apparently that actually used to be a fairly common thing here in the United States, anywhere from like the 10s to the 40s or so. Like, it was very normal to you to go to the grocery store and say, I'd like these 6 things ordered, please. And the guy would say, sure thing, would go get the things, get them to them, and then give them a bill for how much they owed for the groceries. It was actually a pretty normal process. Of course, it relies on customer trust, so you can see why it was discontinued. But anyways, getting back to the point. So, the point here is, I don't know, there's no nice way to say this, because it's going to cost so much more, over triple the over total individual cost for any international shipper. I know Dream Whisperer is committed to it, and will probably be willing to pay that extra cost, but I need to ask all of those people, and again, I'm not saying names out loud, because nobody gives me the nicknames here. I know Negodai, that's the only one. Every single one of those people needs to decide if they want to commit to this, and if they're willing to put that much money in, and the rest of you need to decide if it's okay to continue to lump all of the costs into the one lump sum, which is what the original intent was. Because some people, as I've made very clear, are going to be costing a lot more than some other people. Make sense? So anybody who has any thoughts, comments, or questions about that, I need to hear those. I need your feedback. This is me directly asking you guys. Now, some people are asking, is it still possible to get into the pin ordering thing? So, originally, this is what I had left. There are 2 pins left in here. 2. Which was like, huh. Then I found this bag, which I haven't even opened yet. We're fine on pins. So, that's not a problem. We have plenty of stock. And if we continue to... This is like 50 right here, by the way. So if we continue to have orders even after we go through that 50, it's actually not even hard to buy more, since I actually have a discount, because I plugged... I did a video plugging the company, the Monterey company, that did the pins, and, you know, I got a discount on my next order. So that's not even a big deal. So... basically, if you want to still order, you're absolutely welcome to. If you're asking why, I'll do a quick refresher. What I need from you is your nickname, your name, how many you want, and your address. And I need you to send that to lorerunnershow@gmail.com. That's it. That's all that I require from you. Now, this is really, really important if you are an international person. I need to know your shipping code. Several people were like, you know, I'm in London, and this, and I'm like, I need the actual code. I literally need the code. Because it won't let me even punch it in otherwise, and I don't want to just guess. It'd be like sending me an order here in the States without giving me a zip code. Do I send display cases? No, I don't have display cases. About patrons what, Magister? I have no idea what you're talking about. So I need your codes. Remember to give me the codes. Yeah, actually, that reminds me, Dream Whisperer. I don't know which of the things you gave me is your city. Postal... And also, speaking of which, Dream Whisperer, you didn't give me a postal number of any form. Or a postal code, or a provincial code, or whatever it's called in whichever country you're in. But I don't have a code for you, Dream Whisperer, and I was going to mention that in private, but since you just mentioned it, I need that code from you. So please feel free to email me that code. Or your mail index... You know, whatever it is you call it in your country. There's a code for every country. Everyone does it. We call it zip codes here in the States. They call it mail indexes in Russia. I don't know what they call it in the UK. But I do need those codes. Anyways, so that's the update on the pins. Everyone, I am not going to print or ship any international orders until I hear back from you personally that you are confirming this. So... please get a hold of me. Like I said, Dream Whisperer, basically Dream Whisperer is the only one who is outside of the continental U.S. who has told me about that. Or continental America, I guess is a better way to put that. Anyways, that includes all... By the way, to be clear, that does include the United Kingdom. Anybody out in Britain or England or whatever you want to call it. What is the paying method? However you can get money to me. It's not on Patreon. Do not try to pay through Patreon. It doesn't work that way. If you want to pay in bits, if you want to pay in a direct donation, and I guess that's actually it. So those are the 2 methods that payment can happen. I haven't billed anyone yet because I don't actually know how much it costs yet. Moving on. So that's the pin news. Probably seen. Hang on, let me double check. Of course, I don't have it written down here. I don't know. I'll figure it out later. Seen. It's over there. The mere fact that I already have your shipping label printed out means that yes, I probably have whatever your name is. In fact, a lot of people sent me without sending me their Twitch subs. Do not work. No. A lot of people sent me their real names without their fake names, so I have no idea who some of these are. Probably not, Platty, unless it's changed. Ugh. If it's changed, sure, by all means. I mean, if you moved, I would explain everything. Platty is the one and only person who hasn't gotten her pin of the ones that have been shipped already, by the way. I just feel like pointing that out. Like, I don't know what the hell. It's okay. I mean, I got a hold of FedEx, and FedEx got a hold back of me, and they declared it fully lost. And they have already refunded me the money on that one, so that's fine. It's just, really? Anyways. Next point, after the pins thing. Who knows, would be a big thing. Lord Dad says I should start selling shirts, too. Or, what was the other thing? Oh, bobbleheads. He says I need to start selling lore bobbleheads. Big, bald guy, excuse me. Bald guy going, how many peeps have pins now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 23. And going to be about 5 or so more. Whenever I ship these out. I have no idea what I would do with a shirt. I really don't. Just big Imperial symbol. Anyways. Well, I'm not going to sell shorts. That'd be weird. No, so, is that it for that topic? Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so that's the pin topic. How would I sell it? I've figured out sites that can do that. Bits would be acceptable. Bits are basically a form of direct donation. Only direct donations are acceptable for reasons I don't feel like getting into right now. Hang on, I just got an email from someone. Let's double check this here. It's probably from Scene, and he's probably freaking out for no reason. You know what's funny? Is it actually doesn't matter if you give me a name that you haven't already given. It's already printed, Scene. It's literally already paid for. I've already paid for your shipment. I just haven't dropped it off yet. Oh, hang on. I just got another new order here. What do we got here? Oh my god, it's from this person. It was in this place. Now, I just want to make something very clear. Remember, any international orders are going to be 35 plus, just for shipping. Just making that very clear. Because I want to be nice and upfront and open about this. 35 is me getting it down, and if I'm being honest, I'm still not sure of the actual functionality of actually making that happen. If I just shipped through UPS, which I already have set up, it would be $50 or $100. So, anyways, moving on. Let's see. What's my next topic? What's my next topic? Streaming news. Streaming news. Okay. Let's talk about streaming news. Yes, they're totally platinum. No, they're not. They're zinc. They're zinc with some nickel. So anybody who has any allergies, there's zinc with nickel. Just like Justin there is actually nickel with zinc. It's similar, but it's not quite the same thing. I keep telling Justin he should go with the platinum finish. He just keeps saying, no, man. Nickel for life, yo. And, I mean, that's Justin's thing. That's up to him. I don't care. Thank you very, very much, Justin, as ever. Much appreciated. Thank you. Whew. Streaming. So I've been talking about...
Oh, welcome. Pay close attention. Hopefully you'll learn something.
We've been talking for 30 minutes. I haven't even gotten to my second point yet. Stop donating! Okay, that was Vigilant. Oh, wait, hang on. You're donating towards that. I need to... That's actually a different category. It's down here, because it's not on the site yet. Funnily enough, that's relevant to what I was about to talk about. Thank you very, very much, Vigilant. I've jotted it down in the to-be-dealt-with-later pile. So, Vigilant's idea for a t-shirt is, I'm going home the only way I know how! From Ace Combat 7. Yes, I have, Niscosta. I have gone through so many games. But there's so many left to go through. There really are. It's one of the reasons I've been stressed for so long is because I just have an absolutely gargantuan backlog. Which brings me to stream news. So I've probably used the phrases backlog and Phase 1 and Phase 2 when it comes to streaming. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying, Czar. At least I hope you're enjoying. I have a tendency to think that way. Like, some people ask, why do you call other things type such and such or project such? It's just the way my mind works. I have this sort of structured brain thing going on. Backlog. Let's talk about backlog. The backlog is every stream that was already paid for a year ago. Now, Tizara there, he actually paid for several of these streams himself. But all of this was back when I first started. Thank you very, very much, Tizara. As ever. Much appreciated. Tell me who you want to decide where that goes towards. The idea was back in the day when we very first started streaming regularly and starting the Premiere Run thing. If you remember, I basically required guys, hi Nagodai, I talked about you personally a few minutes ago, please watch the VOD, to fund the, you wanted to, no, subs don't go towards funds. There's some disconnect there. No subs. Because of obvious reasons, really. But again, I really don't want to get into it. The word, god damn it, this is... Nobody donate for like 10 minutes so I can finish talking. I'm just waiting for it. I'm just waiting for it. Okay. Over a year ago, when we first started actually, funding Premiere Runs, I just had a big list up, and I basically said, donate $60 and a game happens. That was pretty much the rule. Now, actually, that's not true. Originally, the rule was I'll decide based on how long the game is and how much it costs. And then I trunked that down to $60, and then we started using the current system. But the problem was back in the day when I was doing the previous two systems, I didn't actually keep all of the records. I didn't track every single donation that came in and jotted it down. I didn't have a spreadsheet. I wasn't organized about the whole thing because I was an idiot. So, as a consequence, that's what the backlog is. It's all of the games that were funded a year ago that we've been slowly working our way through for the past year, including all the lore runs that we've done with like 4 exceptions now. All of that was the stuff that was funded forever ago and is basically something that I owe you guys. To put it into simpler terms, it is a debt. I am indebted to you guys to finish these Premiere Runs. That's the backlog. And as of this moment, that includes Treasures of the Rudras, Tropico 6, Pillars of Eternity 2, Regalia of Men and Monarchs, and that's basically it. There's a couple others on that list, but that's really what's left at this point. I intend Pillars of Eternity 2 to be the last one on that list. Once the backlog is finished, we will start what I've been calling Phase 1 of streaming. Phase 1 is what I call the high-priority streams. I actually happen to have... Listen to you, that's it. 2 of the games on that list are long, and we've also been streaming for a couple months solid to slog through the backlog. But anyways, then we'll hit Phase 1. Phase 1 is high-priority streams, just off the top of my head, and by which I mean I actually have the spreadsheet up. I'll tell you exactly what the high-priority streams are. Those would be, in no particular order, Anthem, Enderal for Skyrim, Pathfinder Kingmaker, the Spider-Man DLCs, the Spyro Reignited Trilogy, The World Ends With You, Switch Edition, and I believe that's it. Yep, that's it. So that's Phase 1, is getting through the streams that have lots of money put towards them and lots of interest put towards them. High priority stuff. Then we will hit Phase 2. Now, I haven't called anything past Phase 2, because Phase 2 is basically just, okay, we're finally caught up. Phase 2 is getting back to normal streaming. But there is one significant thing about Phase 2. Phase 2 is when I will finally accept adding new games to the list, and we'll also be updating the list a little bit in addition to that. Now, several people have already been putting money towards things that are not on the list. This is me glaring at you. So, for example, I'll already tell you right now that once Phase 2 starts, we will also have on the list Halo, Jedi Academy, Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, Pokemon Shield, the expansions for City Skyline, Far Cry New Dawn, Subnautica Below Zero, Link's Awakening Proper Remake, Deltarune, The Way of the Samurai 4, Grandia 1, Assassin's Creed Unity, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Outer Worlds, maybe, eventually sometime, maybe. Fist of the North Star, still have to look into that. Magic the Gathering Arena, Kingdom Hearts 3 Final Mix if it ever comes out, Horizon Zero Dawn's DLC, and some other stuff, which I'll get to in a moment. All of that is stuff that will eventually be able to... Yes, Doom 5 is definitely a high priority stream, by the way. It's not out yet, so technically it doesn't qualify. So that's stuff that's just going to be tossed on there. Thronebreaker, you got it. Just a small list. Yeah, please stop doing that, guys. Tazara, why? Why? No, the count. I have never really done anything for FF14 on the show, and I don't really plan to. Damn it, I can't do that math in my head. Hang on. 875 times... That's strange. When did I mute? When did I mute? I know what happened, but I'm not sure how I hit that button. I must have hit it by accident. I have a hotkey now for muting. So, while doing math. Okay, well, all I said was thank you then, that I missed. So thank you very, very much, Tazara. Much appreciated. So... The other thing we need to talk about with regards to streaming is right now we have what I consider to be the best possible system for showcasing stream funding on the website. That is to say, for those of you not aware, there's several bars. Those bars are colored based on how many separate individuals have put money towards a run. And then the bar's length shows how much money has been put towards it. So it visually shorthands two pieces of information very quickly and very easily, right? That being said, every now and again, and it isn't a common thing, but every now and again we get someone asking, well, hang on, is this run funded or not? We don't really do funding anymore like that, so I explain that every time that comes up. I don't have a better way of doing it. I'm just going to go ahead and say that right now. But I wanted to ask you guys bluntly and openly if you think we should try to look into another way to visually shorthand that information. The best idea I have, and I have no idea how this is going to work, but is to basically have this, still use the colors to show how many people, and then just kind of show the number, like just straight up the amount, rather than a bar. Chill runs aren't even on the list right now, Baron. Chill runs are low priority at all times. So, yeah. So there's several ways. I know I had a couple of thoughts, but the question comes, do we want to do this? Now, part of the reason, just use numbers for both? No, absolutely not. Do I think I'll ever try Warframe? I played Warframe just the other night. Me and Pax finally started playing it. But there's no if it's funded, really. I mean, obviously a game has to be paid for, but there's not really a thing such as, aha, and now it's done. It's not a concept anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. One of the simplest things, so actually, that reminds me, can everyone do me a favor and go to loreweek.com right now, really quick? I just want to verify something. I want you guys to verify that if you scroll down, like basically on the left column, I want you to tell me what the very bottom thing is you see on the left column, okay? I've been having some bugs lately, and I just want to verify that it's fixed. So if everyone can do that for me, please, thank you. The only problem with the number is visually presenting it. I could look into it. I can do that, but I'm pretty sure, Sean, people like to donate more regardless. Stellaris, Stellaris, Stellaris. Okay, that's all I need to know. It's fixed. We're cool. We're cool. Thank goodness. That was a really irritating bug. So the bug I was running into was basically it ran out of space. We had so many premiere runs that it basically, at a certain point, it was just like, nope, this is the terminus. This is as tall as it can be. And so, like, all of some of the premiere run list and the Mini Nation stuff and the chill run stuff wasn't even visible. It was off the bottom of the page. See you around, Seraphim. Have a good one, hopefully. So I'll look into doing a number thing. I'll try to figure it out. Well, see, there's a reason for that, Nascosta. So, obviously, because I'm doing a bar thing, it has to be out of something, right? So when I initially set up the bars, I set it out of 300. 300 was full, right? Now, the plugin allows you to put more than full. It allows you to go over full. So anything you see over 300 is just a game that has had more than $300 put towards it. Now, once we hit Phase 2, all of the games that have more than 300 paid to it will be streamed. They will have been streamed at that point in time. And that's the point of time I would go back. That's why I haven't even bothered with that, because it doesn't matter. It's a nice visual shorthand that shows, yes, lots of money has been put towards that. It works for me. It's not a bug, it's a feature. So, the idea is once we put... I don't understand what you're asking, Disco. Once we're done, with Phase 1, once we are into Phase 2, we could go ahead and have, like, a new max number decided based on whatever the new max number is. Like, if I did it right now, all that would happen is if I redefined all of them, and I have to do this manually, which is a huge pain, by the way. It took like an hour and a half doing the stuff I did this morning. If I redefined it right now with the highest amount, which I believe is 600 something, then all that would happen is the 600 bar would be full, and every other bar would be shrunk substantially, because all of a sudden it's 60 out of 600 rather than 60 out of 300. So, one other idea I had briefly, and I'm still debating about this, this would be the simplest answer. Again, I'd have to do this manually, but I could also just put the amount next to the name. So for those of you not aware of how this works, I have to, when I'm doing the code for those bars, I have to do the amount out of amount. I have to decide the color and the texture, if texture is applicable. And then I have to put the text that's there, right? I have to manually do all that. What I could do is also manually update the number in the text in addition to the number in the bar. So it would, for example, let me just pull up the website really quick. Let me actually use a real example here. Give me a moment. Yeah, I'll even update it right now so you see what I'm talking about. Because this is my first and most obvious thought. Hang on. No. Premiere Run. Here we go. Okay, so I'll do it for the top one, like Age, what is that? Age of something. Age of Wonders Planetfall. So what I could do is do, like, say, this. And then for Anthem, for example, I could do this. Actually, here, we'll do two styles here. So we'll do this, and for this we'll do this here. So I have updated, hang on, actually let me hit the update button before I say I've updated. Publish. So I've updated the top 3 things on the website. Please go check out the website again, website. And if you'll notice, I have updated Automation, Age of Wonders Planetfall, and Anthem. Just manually putting the numbers of how much has been put towards those 3 things into the thing. Do any of those work for you? For interest to be high, as of right now, that would be 21 people have to donate towards something for interest to be high, as of right now. I could do that as I could think of how I would do that, but the way it would look is it would just be a second bar, exactly like a pre-existing bar, because I can't do anything else with those bars. Now again, I don't really mind doing that. It just means a little bit of extra paperwork at the end of the day, which isn't too bad. It'll be more irritating to set up than it will to be to maintain, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But I don't mind doing that if that's a nice, quick, and again, visual shorthand. Because this way we have the visual, this is how full the bar is. We have the, there's the name, we have the color showing the interest number, and we have the number. So, please feel free to keep giving me feedback on that one. I see several people preferring the Anthem version, which is name, $, number, which, again, is relatively easy. The only time it would kind of suck is for games that have really long names, like The World Ends With You, or Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, That's the only downside. We'll have to kind of shorthand some of these, because I only have so much space to work with, too. Anyways, so that'll be Phase 2, when we'll update all that stuff. Like I said, right now it's out of 300. If I was to update it, it would... I guess I could just look. How much would it be out of? Let's see here really quick. What's our most funded run right now? Give me a second. What do we got here? Let's see. Come on. Anthem? No, Anthem's only, what, like, Dark Messiah is 288. Dark Messiah has more money put towards it than Anthem. So Ghost of Tsushima has $425 put towards it. The Spider-Man DLCs, hang on, have 333. The World Ends With You, hang on, has 333. No, that's Spider-Man again. Where the heck's The World Ends With You? Hang on. That's War... Where's the World Ends? There it is! Ah, okay. So Warcraft 3, I see what the problem is. Warcraft 3 has 388 for it. So yeah, The World Ends With You has the most money put towards it of any run, which is $556. So... yeah. So... Let me explain part of what I meant really quick. I can just do this really quickly just to show you why I don't want to update that to 500, why I'm letting it go off the bar. So if I was to update those top three again, Automation, Age of Wonders, and Anthem, with the 600 marker, it would look like this. Update. So if you refresh the page really quick, you should see that Age of Wonders, Anthem, and Automation's bars have suddenly shrunk substantially, even though the exact same amount of money is in it. That's why I'm letting them just kind of go off the bar. Does that make any sense? I swear I think about all of this stuff, because I'm a geek and I've studied this stuff for most of my life, but yeah. Let's reset that back to 300. There we go. So, re-updated. So, I kind of like Money After a little bit better personally. But as ever, keep letting me know. So that's all the streaming news, basically. I do want to talk about cheating. So, is this a topic? Did I actually make this a topic? Not really. Okay, so I just want to talk about cheating in video games really quick. I have gotten 2 people who have started complaining about the fact that I cheat during premiere runs. Now, I want to go ahead and address this from several perspectives here. That has occurred to me, Negadai, absolutely, without question. Although, at the moment, there's not really enough... There's issues with that, but it is something I've considered, Negadai. Let me just go ahead and say really quick, and I just want to be as 100% honest with you guys as I can. I don't like cheating when it comes to video games. It is my opinion that there's only really a couple of circumstances where cheating is acceptable, and all of them are still basically a negative. Either the game is kind of crap, right? It's not a good game, so I cheat to get through it. The game is too long. You know, in other words, go do this for 5 hours, or just cheat in resources, right? To do that. Or a game is, you know, or I've replayed a game for the 50th time. That's an acceptable thing, but, like, obviously that doesn't apply here. Now, so for example, when I cheat in lore runs, that is something that's codified. That's happening. That's never not being a truth. There is just, I have too much experience and too much backing and too much, I'm just going to go with the word experience again, of doing lore runs to not cheat in lore runs. It is definitely something that should happen. But when it comes to premiere runs, I don't actually like to do it. I actually decided to go down and figure it out. I have cheated in 6 of the last 17 games we've done premiere runs on. So that's about 35% of our last premiere runs I've been cheating in. Now, because I like codified information, I decided to go down and actually really figure out which and what and why. So, of those games that I cheated on, 5 of them I consider to be acceptable cheats. In 5 of those cases, it was skip, you know, grinding, or the game sucks. And that was those 5. We're just, alright, let's just go. Let's just go. Right? Let's just get on with it. I do have a schedule. I do a lot of things on my show. I am not one of those people who has time to spend a day grinding just on stream, on camera. There's a reason why I usually continue to keep playing games for premiere runs off camera, is to get that stuff out of the way. There is only one of those games that it actually bothered me to cheat on, and that is actually Sekiro, believe it or not. No, by the way, I am listening to everything that everyone's saying, by the way. I just don't want to lose my train of thought so much. But yeah, I didn't want to cheat on Sekiro, but the hard reality was that I ran into two barriers. One is time, and one is skill. I was not good enough to beat Sekiro, and I am absolutely willing to admit that and accept that. I ran into the Genichiro boss, and I just couldn't do it. Now, some people have said that I could have done it. Some people say that if I just really smashed my face into it, I could have done it. And that is within the realm of possibility. So I decided to look into a few people I know who did play through and beat Sekiro and figure out how long it took them to get through certain bosses. And in several cases, the response is always the same. Basically, they sat there and they just spent most of their free time that day pushing through the boss, dying over and over and over, to finally figure out how to get through it, which is, of course, kind of the point of the Souls from Software method, right? So, woo. That's not really feasible for me for two reasons. Reason number one is that I want you to picture for a moment what it would be like to watch me dying to a boss for, let's say, about 6 hours. Just picture what that stream would look like. That's, not good stream entertainment. That's bad. That is dead air. And that is unacceptable, as far as I'm concerned. From a business perspective, from a professional perspective, that is utterly unacceptable. Yeah, I agree with Doctor Who. At a certain point, it would stop being funny and stop being interest. It would just be like, okay. Right? Now, you might be like, well, you could do that off camera. Well, that would just make it take longer. I don't have a lot of off-camera time as is, and I spend all of it... Well, that's not true. I spend most of it working. I woke up this morning and got to work, and I spent 2 hours working before I started my stream today. So, in other words, if I was actually going to try and do that off camera, like I did with Octopath Traveler, for example, that would just take a really long time, as I get like 30 minutes or an hour in every day for probably a week or two, and then finally come back to the game, and it's like, hi, I'm back. I've got past the boss. And this is funny, because in Sekiro's individual case, what that would mean... Unlike some games, I couldn't just save the moment I beat the boss. There's no quick save. Instead, what would happen is I would beat the boss, a cutscene would play, and then I'd leave, I'd exit the game, and I'd be like, okay, guys, here's what you missed in the cutscene. Because I couldn't show it. So, not really feasible is what I'm trying to say. Now, that being said, as far as I'm concerned, there was no good option there. Because the options were, stream and fail for days on end. Stream off camera for weeks on end, cheat, or quit. These are my only real options. And as far as I'm concerned, none of these are good options. But... it irritates me. I don't have a better way to put that. It is probably at least partially a pride thing. I'm willing to admit that. I am the person who likes doing challenge runs. I am the person who likes difficulty in my games. I'm the person who enjoys the fact that when I do a gold run of Mega Man 1's combined chapter things, it saves that. It saves a video of that so that I can go and prove to people that I did that. I'm sure I'm not the only person who likes that concept. How many of you used to keep your saves for RPGs or whatever, so that you could show that save to a friend and prove that you actually did such and such? Yes, I have the golden chocobo, I can show that. Yes, I have the ultimate weapon, I can show that. Yes, I actually managed to beat the extra boss, here's the thing, etc., etc. I like that. But it, of course, really frustrates me, especially when people tell me that my opinion is no longer worth listening to when it comes to gameplay design philosophies because I cheat. Now, I honestly... I want to make it at some point very clear here, because this is the kind of thing that bothers me regardless of the current controversy. For those of you not actually aware, there is a bit of a controversial topic thing that has been cycling around now about difficulty with regards to video games and whether or not games should have difficulty selectors, basically, whether games should have that kind of accessibility or not. if I'm being completely honest, I don't see why this has become a controversial topic, but even on my own Discord, it got to the point of actual yelling and insulting, at which point it was like, all right, guys, take it to the controversial channel or stop talking about it, one of the two. My thoughts on this are regardless of that, just to be 100% clear. I am not saying this in response to difficulty gate or whatever stupid thing they're calling it right now. I am saying this because this is my thoughts on this. These are my own individual thoughts, regardless of all that. I was already thinking this during the Sekiro run, and before that. And I just wanted to be open and honest with you guys about it. I don't know actually what else to say about that. Obviously, the idea is to not cheat when it comes to Premiere Run. Obviously, because I want to have the most legitimate experience possible to judge the game as fairly as possible. I didn't cheat. Well, I didn't cheat during the main playthrough of Valkyrie Profile. Got through that whole game without cheating. Now, that being stated, some people would say I did get through that game with cheating. And this gets into a whole other topic because I had a walkthrough, right? I had a walkthrough in the form of several viewers who were telling me what to do and how to do it. Or, because there are people who actually view walkthroughs and strategy guides as cheating. There's some people who view using fast forward on an emulator as cheating. There's some people who view using save states in order to, as saves, as cheating. It's kind of a gray area, really. It's actually something that's been debated for years. I actually remember, this is not a joke, I remember having discussions about what constitutes a cheat in the NES era. I can even point to a specific example. I remember the friend. I don't remember his name. I can remember his face. He was getting really angry and pissy about it because he actually thought that anyone who bought one of those, like the old strategy guides, they weren't actually officially licensed. Do you remember when like some book companies would just put out I say a book, but it's like a thick magazine. And it would just have maps of like Mega Man stages and Mario stages and stuff like that. Yeah, the cheat books, yeah. Except there's no cheats there. It's just this is maps and this is where items are, They were effectively strategy guides before strategy guides. And he was arguing stridently, angrily, that that was cheating. This has been debated for 30 years at this point, so I'm not exactly saying that we should codify and define this here. But I've always had a mental thought of what I personally consider cheating and what I don't. I don't think I cheated in Valkyrie Profile except to check out the other stuff. Like we beat Freya to see the bad ending, and we were screwing around on hard difficulty to see how hard difficulty worked. But that was it. For the actual main playthrough, we didn't cheat, in my opinion. And we're not going to cheat on the current playthrough we're going through, Treasures of the Rudras. I absolutely cheated on Sekiro. But then again, it also brings up another concept, because if I could just completely be blunt, that is true, Chocolate, but I really wanted to kill Freya. I just wanted to see what happened. Yeah, no kidding, Thernova. The other thing I want to mention, though, is a concept. This is a concept from my friend Gary. It's called means to an ends, right? So let's say I'm playing, we'll use a direct example. Let's say I'm playing Sekiro, and I can't beat Genichiro. So I use a cheat that makes it so that anytime I actually hit him, it does tons of stagger damage. That is the actual cheat I used. Now, I'm pretty sure that the overwhelming majority of everyone would say, yes, that absolutely is cheating, right? I absolutely think that's cheating. Means to an ends is a form of cheating that basically isn't really cheating. Let me explain exactly what I'm talking about. Let's say you're playing Star Control Origins, because we did this. And let's say that I have to go and grind money. That's it, I just have to go grind money. It's not hard. There's no difficulty, and I could do it half asleep. And I just have to do it for like an hour or 2 or 3 or whatever, right? So instead I grind, and all of a sudden I have all that money. That's what we call a means to an ends cheat. It's still cheating, but it's arguably not cheating, because all it is doing is removing time from the equation. Nothing else. Now, I know that there are as I just mentioned, there are plenty of people who think that is or isn't acceptable. In my opinion, that is acceptable. In my opinion, when it comes to just cutting out grind, that is the sort of thing that is absolutely an understandable thing to just cheat for. And you know why? Because I'm 36, and I don't have a lot of time in my life. I'm not a kid anymore. I don't have 6 hours at the end of my school day to just sit around and hang out and play video games. And I know a lot of you know what I mean by that. Right? Now, that is just my opinion, and I'm not saying that it's right. I just wanted to share some of my thoughts on cheating, because it's been brought up a few times. I know a few people have mentioned it. I know it's been something that's been on my mind, regardless of, you know, the controversy or whatever. And I wanted to be open and honest with you guys, as I always am. Well, I suppose that depends on circumstances, Rax. Like, for example, let's say that... Let me use another example while we're on this topic, because this is related to what Rax just said. How many of you have ever been doing a challenge run or a speed run, which, because both, they're like that, right? And you're trying to get through a section, and it's like, in order to get through this section, you have to go through here, and go up here, and go up here, and do this, and go over here, and do this, and then you get to the hard part, and then you die. And so you gotta start over. Back here. So it's like the hard part. Back here. Now, I know quite a few speedrunners. In fact, I would say the overwhelming majority of speedrunners that I know of personally, who will basically make a save state right here at the hard part. And then they'll practice the hard part. No, okay, that doesn't work. Oh, nope, that doesn't work. Oh, nope, that doesn't work. Right? You know what I'm talking about. It's not the intent to cheat. And yet there are people who view that as cheating. Because what they're doing is they are effectively using cheats to practice. Now, I'm with that. To me, that makes sense for a lot of different reasons, but the most practical and fundamental is when you get to a certain section, you want to practice that section. You got the earlier stuff done, right? You know the earlier section. You know the earlier... there's no difficulty in doing this stuff here. It's you don't know how to do this boss. You're trying to get better at this exact thing. You're trying to paint a house, not the entire canvas. And so you practice writing or drawing the house. Now, I know that sounds like a dumb analogy, but that's because I'm an idiot. But the point being, to me, that makes perfect sense, which brings me to what Rax was talking about. The idea that if you are cheating to actually try to skill and practice at a thing, and then like basically wean yourself off of or simply stop the cheats to then do it legitimately, I don't really consider that cheating personally. Actually, I know what you're talking about, Colgrim, because I've actually looked at Doom. I haven't gone and fought it myself yet for obvious reasons. The long and the short of this, of course, is that I know this is going to sound shocking coming from me, but I think that it depends on the circumstances. And I just wanted to kind of say that Shadow Machine is awesome, regardless of anything, because he is. But I also wanted to justify myself on this and to defend myself a little bit on this, because if I can be completely blunt, Shadow Machine is awesome. Thank you very, very much, as always. Thank you, Shadow Machine. You are great. If you want to put that towards something... okay, it's a repeat. Well, I'm still grateful because you're still awesome, dude. But, God, Colgrim. If I could just be 100% honest with you guys for a moment, I'm just going to lower the armor for a second here. It really bothers me when people automatically presume that I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to game design. Like, something about that just irks me. I don't know actually how to explain that. I have been passively and then actively and then professionally studying game design for 25 years now. And for someone to basically presume that I don't know what I'm talking about, it just kind of hurts. And I know that's so stupid. But I mean, I don't mistake me. I understand that people presume I am primarily a lore guy. It's literally in my name. I'm not judging on that. But every now and again, I'll get someone who basically says, well, no, ignore him about gameplay. He doesn't know what he's talking about at gameplay. His opinion isn't worth listening to about gameplay, and that just hurts. Like, I cannot put... It's also... I suppose it's doubly irritating because it's such a passion of mine. I know that sounds, again, like a stupid thing. But, I really love game design. I know that sounds so stupid. But I love power progression curves. I love deciding how level design can be done. I love trying to analyze how exactly the game interacts with you and how the interface functions, how the controls function, and whether or not you should have frame windows or iframes or any of that stuff. You know, that's stuff I've been, like I said, I've been studying for 20 whatever years at this point. 25 years. I love that. I dig that. I eat it up. It's one of the reasons tassing was so fascinating to me. When I finally discovered tassing, is because it was like, oh my god, I could really dig into the game. But anyways, point being, I just wanted to get that off my chest. Hang on, like a lot of people have said message to me. I need to scroll up here. Save scumming, that's another example. Save scumming is an excellent example of cheating that may or may not actually be cheating. And what's funny is save scumming is also not a binary thing. Because, for example, if you're trying to do this perfect jump and then you're reloading, you try to do this perfect jump and you're reloading, you try to do this perfect jump. But there's also, okay, well, I'll redo the mission. Okay, well, I'll redo the mission. You know, there's a gradient there. There's a gradient when it comes to save scumming. I don't know. I really don't know why this is a controversy. I really don't. I don't understand that. But then again, I don't understand most. I don't understand most controversies, so I am really not the person to ask about that. That's right. I do play video games. I play video games and I watch Star Trek for a living. It is surprisingly stressful. Okay. Let's, whoops. Let's talk about Anthem, because I swear this is actually a related topic. Believe it or not. Hey, what was the XCOM thing? I missed that. Hang on, there it is. What's this? Okay, that's amusing. Let's talk about Anthem. I swear this is actually related. I never had the time, Anthony. I never actually got around to it. Someday, maybe. I don't know. Where's our timestamps? We have talked way too long about that topic. Actually, I'm not really talking about Anthem. That's kind of a lie. I apologize for the clickbaity thing. We're talking about Crunch. We're talking about Crunch. Can I just go ahead and be honest with you guys? I know that's a strange thing for me to request. Crunch is wrong. Crunch is wrong. Crunch is unacceptable. Now, that being said, I have to clarify that statement. If you need to cram for a bit, okay, sure, whatever. If you want to get through a section, yeah, alright, whatever. If you are deciding to crunch in order to... At the last week because you're running out of time, you know, sure, okay, fine. The problem with crunch is that it is normal. In fact, it's not only normal, it is actually considered a positive thing. I believe Sterling talked about this. I haven't actually had a chance to watch any of his videos for like weeks now at this point. But I bring this up because I mentioned how I didn't really want to talk about the Anthem expose last week, and a few people basically said that I was in favor of developer crunch as a consequence of that. Those people are wrong. See, the problem is, in my opinion, there is no acceptable circumstance by which a corporation says, hey, go crunch, like, for a month. Or a year. Or all the time. Just constantly put in massive overwork hours. One of the things that I really took away most from that Anthem expose was the crunch, was the people who were having psychotic breakdown. That's the wrong word. Stress breakdowns. There's probably a better term for that. The people who were... just could barely actually deal with that, could barely function mentally, emotionally, stressfully. And, of course, that also brings to mind something that I've seen several other developers talk about. This is actually something from Blizzard several times. Thank you, Sony Discman. When, lol, Chocolate Rob. Yeah, they had signs of war soldiers. People actually literally had forms of stress that were common from people who had actually been involved in real conflict, in fighting other people in real life. I mean, what? The very idea here is incredibly unacceptable. Now, you've probably heard me talk about this before. In my notes, this is literally just Anthem, Crunch, quarterly report. That's all I have in my notes, because that's all I need. Because that is, in my opinion, the real problem here. Why does Crunch exist in the industry? Now, I can see 3 reasons right off the top of my head. I'm just going to go into it. Reason number 1 is because it's become something that's a little bit too positive. And I use that word very specifically because how many times have you or someone you've known or someone you've read of basically bragged about how often they work? How many times has it turned into a pissing contest? Oh man, I just had to do a 44-hour work week. Oh yeah, well I had to do like a 52-hour work week. Oh yeah, well I had to go without lunch these 3 days. Like it's something to brag about. Like it's something that this is why I say it's a positive. That it's something that is, aha, I work so hard and so much. Overworking and workaholism is actually generally considered to be a positive thing, at least here in the States. I don't know how this works in other countries. But yeah, the Japanese work ethic, it's exactly what it is. Yeah, 44 hours, that's it? That's all you've worked? You know. Now, I've noticed several people have already kind of pointed towards me on this one. And that's acceptable. I accept that. I work my ass off because because my job is my life. That's just the harsh reason, the truth there. And also because I work 2 jobs, so I need to keep both of them going full tilt. But the point being, that's in my opinion the first reason. You know, man up, like Dakota says. Although I have absolutely seen one-upmanship on that. I have absolutely seen people, you know, straight up say, oh yeah, well, I worked even longer. But I've also seen people brag about how much they've worked in a given week, or how much work or how little sleep they've gotten because of a thing. I've actually seen that happen many times before I worked these jobs. The second reason, though, is a little more obvious, and that's the idea of the fact that when it comes specifically to game development, the market is awful. Just to put it as bluntly as I possibly can. Like the actual business side of the developers of video games, of the video game industry, is a cesspit. And I don't mean the developers themselves are cesspits. Actually, quite the contrary. What I mean is that those developers have to deal with a lot of garbage all the time. Let me put it to you this way. Hey, Rax. All right, here's the thing, Rax. We're working on Kingdom Hearts 4, okay? It's set in the Nomuraverse, obviously. And you are... we need to hit a certain deadline. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you, Rax, that you need to go ahead and put in some extra hours this week. I may or may not actually give you full overtime for this. That depends. You might be a salaried employee rather than an hourly employee. And for those of you who don't know the difference, salaried means you get paid X, the end. Whereas hourly means you get paid for how many hours you work. Make sense? So, Rax, you need to put in the extra time to get this done. I don't care how long it takes. Just get it done. Now, let's say Rax says nope. Okay, you're fired. Because there are 50 other people who are begging to take your job. This has been true for decades. This has been true since the NES era at the absolute earliest. Or latest, excuse me, absolute latest. Because there are lots of people who have a great deal of passion for game design. And a lot of people who absolutely look at game development as an ideal job. And a lot of people who don't realize just how that would actually work as an actual career, you know? How stressful and taxing and cesspity that industry actually is. I can hire 6 people for the money I'm paying you. Yeah. And the harsh truth is, from a purely economic perspective, if all you care about is money, if the only thing that manager cares about is money, which is at least possible, then it is actually legitimately easy for that developer, for that manager to say that it is actually better for him to fire Rax, the vet, and hire in 2 new people. because those two people will be easier or it's easier, wrong word. It'll be cheaper. It'll be easier to get rid of them once they're gone. They'll probably cost less in overall benefits because they won't have the same kind of benefits package, because most benefits package are things that you build up to over time. You know, you've been an employee for 3 years, now you get this, that kind of a thing. Well, these two new people will cost him less money, and they'll do the same type of work. So, bye. And yes, this is also true in the IT industry as well, just speaking personally on that one. Well, that's not necessarily true, Takoida, unfortunately. I mean, it certainly could be true. But, yeah. Now, that brings me, of course, to the third reason, the quarterly return, which I really I'm starting to feel more and more like I'm a conspiracy theorist, because I just keep pointing to how many problems in life are caused by the problem of the quarterly return. But how many games in the last year, just in the last year, have been having crunch development times, and the specific reason why is in order to meet a deadline? Is because they were told this game has to come out at X time. Now, can anyone tell me why? Why they have set deadlines for games that are done the way they are done now? And I want to stress the way I said that, because games should have some degree of deadlines. They should. It's worth noting, and I don't want to sound too anti-corporate, but it is definitely worth noting that there needs to be some kind of deadline and needs to be some kind of reining in of developers on the management side. The problem is I don't think that's happening in the overwhelming majority of cases. Instead, it's, well, we want them out at a certain market quarter. Exactly right, Junk Garage. Because we need to hit a certain profit margin for this particular quarter, so that the quarterly return is as it should be, an ever-increasing amount of money. Now, what's funny is, as several people point out, this isn't just a game industry thing. I can actually point to one, or rather 3, films in particular that had this exact problem with them. The Hobbit trilogy. Now, I don't want to get into that nest, but the Hobbit trilogy was an example of something that meandered because of business decisions, and then was given a deadline because of business decisions. And both of those were wrong. The meandering was something that they arguably couldn't have helped, but nevertheless was definitely hampered by, let's call it what it is, mismanagement. And then they're like, okay, we finally have the rights, and now you have a short deadline to actually produce the films, which definitely hurt the films. And the Hobbit trilogy was made in a crunch. Never mind the fact that it was turned from 2 films into 3. Let's ignore that for a moment. I just wanted to make my opinion on this extremely clear. I am not in favor of crunch. Now, I do crunch myself. I do. I'm not even going to try to deny it. I work 7 days a week, normally. I crunched the hell out of myself back during December and January to get the YouTube stuff, the YouTube backlog pushed in. I can't foresee not crunching in the foreseeable future. I'm basically stuck. Like, I work 2 jobs, and I barely make enough money to survive, so I can't stop doing that. But at least in my case, I am one person telling myself to do that. There is no manager telling me to do this because I have to hit a deadline. There is no corporation that is trying to force this onto me by insisting that I have to make sure that this quarter makes the profit margin it needs to. This is my decision in order to maintain my current existence. This is not garbage, you know? Whether it's good or not is debatable, but at least it's not crap. Taxes. Oh my god, I don't want to talk about taxes right now. I really don't. I spend more money on taxes than anything else in my life right now. That's not a joke. Like, if I was to give you a pie graph of where my money goes right now, the biggest slice, by a decent margin, would be taxes. Once I move out, once I finally get to move, then the amount I spend in rent will be just barely more than how much I spend in taxes. Anyways, moving on. So that's crunch. Let's talk about something more positive. Let's talk about Disney. I don't think anyone's ever said that ever. I have 2 jobs, Tazara. One of them is YouTube, and one of them is streaming. Those are my 2 jobs. See, hazardous. I don't know if you're aware of this, and obviously this isn't Halloween, but yes, that was a lie, Arcus. Well, kind of, but yes, that was basically a lie. I didn't actually see A New Hope in theaters until I saw it in the re-release in 90 whatever. Oh, I know. I pay more in taxes than an individual would, because I basically pay double the taxes of what any of you guys pay, because I am basically I'm a self-employed individual business, which means I get absolutely no tax breaks whatsoever. So I have to just pay full taxes. That's why I pay a huge, hundreds and hundreds of dollars every month just in taxes and nothing else. Some people have said, why don't you go corporate? Well, it's not quite that easy. If I just go corporate, that doesn't just automatically make my taxes go down, because I still would be a small business. Even if I'm an LLC or whatever, I would still be not getting the kind of breaks on taxes that I would need to really make that worthwhile. Moving on, Disney Plus. So, where's my list? Here it is. Disney Plus is a thing. We got some information about Disney Plus. I just wanted to kind of talk about this briefly. Obviously, they're going ahead and, tossing out stuff that's going to be on it. So let's just go down the list here, because there's actually a lot of things about this. First of all, the immediate movie slate is going to contain, Pixar stuff, Disney stuff, Star Wars stuff. Just bam, bam, bam. They are going to be they're getting rid of the vault, which is actually a good thing in my opinion. For those of you not aware of what the vault is, the Disney vault is a concept that Disney has employed for, God, like 40 years, I think, at this point. It's been a long time. The Disney vault is the idea that Disney periodically basically archives some of their projects, some of their films, and just doesn't touch them for an extensive period of time. And then they'll pull it out, and they'll devault it every now and again, and then they'll revault it. It's this whole policy. If I'm being honest, I don't remember why they started doing that. I meant to look that up, but I haven't had time for it. But the Disney Vault concept is going away. All this stuff is just going up on Disney Plus. Just there it is. The interface, I've seen the interface. I'm looking at it right now. It looks very Netflixy, which I'm fine with. Netflix's interface is actually perfectly acceptable. There's also going to be just about all of the new show stuff that they're pushing out. The Mandalorian and the other shows I don't know the names of right now. That's all going to be there. Disney's stock jumped up substantially, by the way, at the announcement of this news. Oh yeah, I suppose I should mention this as well. It's going to be $7 a month or $70 a year. I want to go ahead and predict up front that that's going to raise. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, duh. No, I mean, it's going to raise, like, almost immediately. In fact, I would bet money that what that is, let's call it the initial price for early adopters. And I would almost assure you that within, let's say, 6 months, they will then release the actual price, which they may or may not push old people into paying, or maybe not. Because the idea is if they're like, we'll give you $70 a month, or $70 a year, excuse me, or if you wait, then it'll go up to $140 a year. In other words, try and encourage people to buy in at the initial. Why? Well, I've actually already answered that question in the quarterly report. Because if they can show that this is a massive success by getting a large number of people to sign up early, then they could show this to the actual stock analysts and to the board of directors and say, yes, this is a wildly successful thing. It inflates interest, exactly. They want as many early clients as they can get. Now, let me go ahead and say, as weird as it may sound, that is actually smart. I don't know if they will maintain $70 a year. I don't know if it's actually financially feasible to maintain $70 a year. I don't know. I don't have anywhere near the information necessary to say if 70 a year would actually be able to not only cover the costs of the operation of the service, but also make money. However, I absolutely say that they can, that getting as many people in early and as possible is a smart choice. That being said, it is cheap. We'll see what they end up doing with it. All of this is still speculative. We'll see what they end up doing with it. Now, the next thing to mention is that they're going to have a huge amount of content on this. I don't even have the full list in front of me because I haven't found a site that has listed the full list. Like, we've got The Mandalorian and the Cassian show and the Obi-Wan Kenobi thing. Clone Wars are going to be there. The Solo series is going to be there. There's going to be a Muppets thing. There's going to be the Monsters, Inc. thing. There's a bunch of movies, a bunch of shows. Marvel 616, Earthkeepers, Be Our Chef, Encore, Reconnect, Rogue Trip, Shop Class. There's a huge list of content. It is going to be an absolutely, honorously huge amount of stuff, new and old. Now, that's kind of the trick there, right there, and I do think that is also a smart thing. It's not just an archive of all the Disney IP stuff. It is also going to be the archive of all of their new stuff going forward. This is how Disney is going to be presenting their shows henceforth. And I don't know if you guys have paid attention, but Disney is pushing very heavily into shows lately. Have you noticed that? They have, what, 15 separate shows that either are currently going or are about to start going, revolving around Marvel, Disney, and Star Wars alone. And Disney owns more IPs than those. Oh yeah, Simpsons is going to be on there too. That actually amuses me. So, an enormous, absolutely enormous amount of content. Okay, I'm actually kind of with that. I do like how the Simpsons thing is like, hey, we're joining them. And there's Bob Iger and then Darth Vader. Because Bob Iger, for those of you not aware, is actually kind of a horrible human being. But let's just move on from that. Yeah. No, you're right, Max Time. With the advent of, let's call it the Netflix era of television, shows have really kind of come into their own. And actually, as weird as it may sound, I'm actually kind of in favor of that. You know, any of you have seen the recent interview, which I finally got a chance to actually read, from J. Michael Straczynski about Babylon 5, he mentions one of the biggest issues he had, this was back in the 90s, one of the biggest issues he had was trying to convince people that a serialized show would work, that people would actually be willing to watch it. Some of you may not remember this, but back in the day, it was considered, at least amongst executives, television executives, the very idea, it was a good interview, absolutely, the very idea of a show that had contiguous continuity, that had string continuity, as I like to call it, that was soap operas. Those are the only shows that did that, right? Nobody wants that. And, of course, there were some legitimate reasons for thinking that. Now, I don't agree, but there were legitimate reasons for thinking that. Because back in the day, television wasn't as common as it is, and a lot of the people who were in charge of making those decisions remembered when TV was something that you might do on the weekend when you got a couple hours to yourself, right? And so they wanted to make as many shows as possible to be able to have people just come in and watch a show and, you know, not be completely lost. That was a legitimate concern. That concern doesn't exist anymore. Nowadays, you can just go... Nowadays, television is a hobby. Oh, Doctor Who predates anime too, Anthony. Let's be clear. There are definitely exceptions. Again, I'm not saying that it was a legitimate concern. There are other people who are saying it was a legitimate concern. I guess I am saying it as well, but whatever. You get the point. But yeah, you get the idea. Nowadays, all of those concerns are gone. There is no denying that as of what I'm calling the Netflix era of television, the idea of drop in, drop out just isn't a thing anymore. You may do that as an artistic choice, but there's no executive pushing. There's no monetary reason. There's no concerns of marketing with having a show that requires you to do that, because you can just go and watch the whole show, and because plenty of people spend plenty of time just watching TV nowadays and have for decades at this point. Yeah, and I was just about to talk about that next time. I'm sorry, Desara, because you can watch TV on the way to work, on the subway. You can listen to TV on the way to work. I know people who listen to me and the MP3s I put out on the way to work when they're driving. You can watch TV at your lunch break. You can watch TV while you're just kind of chilling on the way home, or when you're at the bus stop or whatever, right? it is so easy and accessible to not only have TV in the cracks in your life, but also to have it so that you can binge watch. There's a reason why so many shows do the thing where rather than here's an episode, then you wait a week, and then here's an episode, and then you wait a week, here's 14 episodes. Bam! And they just drop 14 episodes on you on your face. And you can just deal with that in whatever order you want to. You know? Oh, I remember Tazara. You guys, those of you who've been watching my Star Trek Ruminations probably remember I keep mentioning that I watched a lot of Star Trek with my mom when I was growing up, and for a decent chunk of my, my early years and teenage years. And the reason why is because we both basically set aside some time every week to watch Star Trek. We had to schedule that. We had to make that happen. Anyways. So yeah, I get it. Point being, I do think what Disney is doing here is actually really, really smart. I don't know if it's good, but I will say one thing in favor of it, and this is not a good thing. I suppose it'd be more accurate to say that this is an acceptable thing in a world that is unacceptable. Disney owns so much right now that the Disney Plus service is probably one of the only services out there that really has a chance, in my opinion, of being like the streaming service. I bet you actual money that there are people who are going to cancel Netflix or cancel Hulu or cancel Amazon to get Disney Plus. If for no other reason than Disney Plus is going to have an enormous breadth of content. Yeah. Now, a couple other things. I actually tweeted out about this, although I shouldn't have. I did so in haste. It is probably worth noting that, so they mentioned that they'll allow you to download stuff. Ooh. Now, the thing is, we don't know any details about that. I said that as a positive thing. Yeah, yet, Doctor Who. I said that as a positive thing. I don't actually know if that's a positive thing. Oh yeah, sorry. Several people keep asking if it's an international. Yes, it's going to be released in, I believe the exact quote is almost every section of the world. I'm trying to find the exact quote here, forgive me. But it's going to be an international thing. It's going to be rolled out in layers. Like, it's hitting the States first this year. And then it's... this isn't telling me the info. Blah, 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 blah. It's not going to tell me. It is going to be rolled out internationally, yes. let's just go ahead and say that. Oh, here we go. November 12th, it'll be out in the States. That's also everything's not going to be on it initially, too, which is kind of interesting in its own right. Yeah, we'll see. Again, we're not really sure. Canada? I have no idea about Canada. I believe they didn't actually say the exact regions they're hitting. But they did mention, obviously all of the major regions they're hitting. The Asian market, the European market, the African market, the South American market, the North American market, the Australian market. Every continent is going to be represented. We know that. What was I going to say? The download thing. So, I'm going to go and admit something to you guys. I own the first season of My Little Pony on Amazon Prime. Now, I'm sure you understand why I own that season. In case you don't understand why, it's because I have a niece. Now, here's the thing. I can't download that. I own that. I own that show. I have purchased it. I dropped the money to procure the entire season. And I wanted to download it, to put it on my phone, to give it to her. To let her actually, watch it. That would be great. I can't do that. I am physically incapable of doing that. Now, I know what you're thinking. You can totally download things to your phone. No. See, here's what actually, the way this works. Amazon allows you to download things to certain devices, which does include the phone, and allow you to watch them there, but not actually keep them, and it's a timed thing. Netflix does this too, consequently. It allows you to have offline mode, but the offline mode only lasts, I believe, 30 days or something like that. So in other words, in, say, 15 years, I will not own that. Or I might not own that. Also, I should really point this out because this aggravates the ever-living crap out of me. I can't download those on my computer. It's not even an option. I can only do that on certain devices, like I said. That's stupid. This is actually something I've talked about several times recently because this irritates the crap out of me. This is something that I've mentioned when it comes to ownership. One of the reasons why Steam, why I'm against stream gaming, why I'm against Google Stadia, you know, that kind of a thing. Because I don't own some of the things I own. I license them. Now, there's a bit of gray area here, and I don't want to get into that whole topic again. But the reason I bring this up with regards to Disney Plus is one of the things they flat out stated was that Disney Plus will allow you to download stuff. And I was like, yes! But what I don't know is actually the definite details there. If Disney Plus, and this is almost assuredly not true, now that I think about it. I was talking about this with PAX. But if Disney Plus actually allows you to download stuff, for real, stuff that you own, that'd be nice. But now that I think about it, they're probably not going to let you do that. They're probably just going to do the same thing Netflix does and the same thing Amazon does. And just let you download them for a period of time on certain devices. If I'm being honest, that's one of the biggest details that matters for me going forward. There's actually a decent chance I will get Disney Plus. If nothing else, it'll be a nice way to watch shows with my family. But I personally would only really be interested if there was the possibility of being able to download things for realsies. Even if that means actually buying them separately. I'm okay with that. I don't mind buying stuff as long as it's mine after I buy it. I know that makes me old-fashioned. I don't care. So we'll see. We'll see. Also, assuming we end up covering any of the new Disney shows, we'll probably be doing that through Disney Plus because it'll be the only option. It'll be the only option. Oh, that's not quite true, Chocolate Rob. How many of you guys remember when a lot of the film industry went after VHSs and rental stores because they were trying to make it so that you don't actually own a movie that you bought? You remember that? I remember that. That was the 90s when that happened. This is not new. I remember being glad we won that fight because Jesus. Yeah, if we ever do a mini nation on The Mandalorian, I'll probably need Disney Plus for it. It'll be my only option, really. Yeah, I remember that, Brig, when the VHS that would delete its own stuff after X amount of time. Anyways, we'll see. Disney Plus, woo. Honestly, I will go ahead and be honest. Disney Plus sounds like a net positive so far. It seems like they're doing the best they possibly can. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and say that this is going to sound really strange. Disney should probably buy Netflix or Hulu. I'm serious. Because then they would be able to basically... One of the biggest... someone mentioned this in chat earlier. One of the biggest benefits Disney has for doing their own thing is they're basically bypassing a lot of legal and licensing issues. They could just put out The Little Mermaid forever. They don't have to renew that. For those of you not aware, Netflix has to renew content. If you ever wonder why some movies come and go from Netflix, is because they have to renew the license to be able to rent out or sell that stuff. So they can just do The Little Mermaid, to use a direct example, forever. They own that. They don't have to renew that license. If they pull Netflix into their own label, then there's basically more stuff they don't have to worry about renewing. And yes, I know that Disney already owns a portion of Hulu. That's not what I mean. I mean Disney just straight up procuring Hulu and folding Hulu into Disney Plus. Or Netflix into Disney Plus. Some of you probably don't remember this. I actually brought this up during a Loreweek about 2 years ago. Netflix was in financial straits, and Disney decided to start pushing this Disney Plus thing rather than buying Netflix. you probably don't remember this, but I actually pointed out back then that what Disney should have done is just bought Netflix and just started using Netflix as their Disney Plus. But instead they're doing their own thing. We'll see how it works out. Anyways. What's our next point? Ah, yes. That's our next point, isn't it? That's our next topic point. Okay, so let's go ahead and address something here really quick. I want y'all to remember something. We here, the lore runners, I'm sorry. Everyone, be cool. That's all I ask of you. That is all I ask of you. If you dislike something, fine. If you love something, fine. If you hate something, fine. If you disagree with something, fine. Rule 0, okay? Don't be a dick. That's all. That is all I ask, really. We cool? All right. So, what? No, don't ban me, Micromono. No. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Skywalker. So, okay, before I even hit play, I've got the trailer ready to go. Before I hit play, please stop spamming that hazardous. Before I hit play, the title, because I don't need to hit play to talk about the title. The Rise of Skywalker. That's a dumb title, in my opinion. I should probably add that. Everything I'm about to say is my opinion. Can we just make that clear? Now, it's funny, as I've talked about this before. Star Wars movies, in my opinion, have reasonably acceptable titles with one noteworthy exception. You know, The Phantom Menace. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, okay. A New Hope. All right, that works. The Empire Strikes Back. Doesn't make as much sense until you think about it, but it's there. Return of the Jedi. Makes perfect sense. The Force Awakens. Yeah, all right. The Last Jedi. It's misleading, but all right. But I didn't mention Attack of the Clones for a reason, because Attack of the Clones was a dumb title. It's still a dumb title. Attack of the Clones has never not been a dumb title, in my opinion. And it still doesn't make any kind of sense. At least I can make an argument for every other film title. See, around my Shadow Machine. I can make an argument for every other title and why it makes sense or why it works, except for Attack of the Clones. It makes no sense at all, actually. It barely involves the clones. The clones are only technically attacking. That's like calling the next Star Wars movie Jedi lightsaber battle. You know, it's technically true, but it's still dumb. So, The Rise of Skywalker, right? The defense of the clones would have made more sense, honestly. Or maybe the Clone Wars. Or maybe the beginning of the Clone Wars. Or maybe, I don't know, the Separatist Threat. I mean, I can think of like a dozen other titles. But I'm getting off topic. So we have The Rise of Skywalker. Now, first of all, I actually looked this up several times to make sure I didn't misdo this. Because The Rise of Skywalkers... Okay, that might make a little more sense. Or The Rise of the Skywalker. Well, that's actually just confusing. But no, it's The Rise of Skywalker. Individual and proper noun. Okay. So at this point in time, we've got... I mean, depending on how you define it, we have approximately... 1 Skywalker left, or 2, depending on how you define it. But I would actually argue 0. Because Leia is, you know, a solo, and so is Ben. However, if we were to stretch it, then we have 2. We have Leia and Ben, and that's it, Kylo Ren. So... What? Now, I've heard basically everyone say the same thing about this. Virtually everyone I've seen who's already been theory crafting about this have all said the same general idea. The idea that Skywalker is either more of a moniker or a title or, I hate to use this word, a destiny. That the Skywalker lineage is actually something that follows through with a greater scope concept rather than an actual familial line. In other words, the idea that it actually has nothing to do with blood. More rather, it has to do with destiny. Which would make Rey a Skywalker and arguably Kylo, a Skywalker. I'm not talking about that yet, Golvag. We'll get into that. We got another talk about that. So, we'll see. Now, funnily enough, my own theory is similar to what Doctor Who just mentioned in chat. My own theory is that Skywalker is going to be a proper noun that does not refer to an individual. It's going to refer, and it's also not going to refer to destiny, although, if we're being honest, that's probably the most likely candidate. But instead that it's going to refer to the new Jedi Order, basically. That rather than being called the Jedi Order, it'll be called the Skywalker, or the Skywalkers, or something like that. We'll see. We'll see. It's going to be a Destiny thing, or Rey's a Skywalker, or something. I don't know. But I'm already... The first thing I learned about this film was the title. And I had this same exact reaction I did to Attack of the Clones, which is why I brought that up. It's just, okay. Sure. The problem is... the problem with my own theory there is if, for example, and this is what SJ just mentioned in chat, if I was to say the rise of the Lorewalker, that's inaccurate. It would be the Lorewalkers, or the Lorewalking, or the Lore Running, or the Lore Runners, or the Lore Runner, but the Lorewalker doesn't actually make sense. You know? I got nothing. I can't think of any way that this title works for me. We'll see. We got, what, like 8 months to go? 5 months ago, something like that. It's a while. Next point. So I'm going to go and just hit play here, actually. Give me just a second. I'm going to have it muted because copyright law is still copyright law. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. It needs to be here. Don't mind that. That was just a Disney Plus thing. Oh, God, now it's actually missized. Why does this keep doing this? Every frickin' time. Give me one moment. Every time I do this. It's really a pain capturing footage like this. There. Okay. So, like I said, we're going to keep that muted. Lucasfilm, which... Yay, I guess. I don't know. Remember when that was a good thing? I do. Let's see if Morrowind music goes with everything. So here we are on yet another desert planet. What do you think? Is it Tatooine or Jakku, the other desert planet that looks exactly the same? I'm sorry, that's just my cynicism. We, of course, recognize which saber she has there. You'll notice she actually has another thing equipped there. I'm not sure if it's her staff. Oh, it's a blaster. There you go. You can see right there. This is not the first time I've seen this, by the way. This is more like the third. Yeah, that's right. We have 3 desert planets so far. Every generation has a legend. And a desert planet. It's a real... Oh my god, it's Kylo Ren's lightsaber, except it's not Kylo Ren's thing. It's definitely... So they only show his gloves, which is just a tease. You notice that? And of course she turns to do her super awesome thing. Now, several people have done higher analyses of this. Whoops, too far. Than I am going to do right now. But that is basically a tie I. Or, I'm sorry, wrong letter. That's a tie A, as in a tie advanced. I just noticed the pose we paused her in. Anyways. Tie A's are death machines. Like, they're seriously some of the better starfighters in Star Wars. At least they were in the EU. I have no idea what they are in AU. Nevertheless, the more important part to mention here is that this fighter craft is extremely similar to Kylo's craft, which was back in TLJ. There are a few differences. It is not exactly the same. Oh, it is a tie-eye. Whatever. Yeah, no, that is a tie-eye. I'm sorry. Oh, no, she's totally got this. Watch. Watch. Totally gonna make it. Bonk! Sorry. This Christmas! So then we have... I have no idea where this is. Some random place. Kylo fighting alongside with some stormtroopers because, I mean, why would he be redeemed? Oh, also, rebuilding his helmet. You remember it was destroyed at the end of TLJ, so that's neat. Yay. So that's coming back. And then we've got my favorite character in the sequel trilogies. And another awesome character. So there's the new droid. Dio, I think? D1? God, I don't remember. They mentioned his name. That's the other droid. Because we need to have as many cute droids as possible. Then we've got Dio. It was Dio. Now, I gotta admit, this actually made me smile. That really did. Go ahead and make fun. I don't care. Lando Calrissian is awesome. He was one of my favorite EU characters. I'm happy he's back. He's back. Shut up. He finally got it back over Han's dead body. Yes, I've seen the meme. But in all seriousness, Lando's awesome. I'm glad he's back. He was actually one of my favorite parts about the Solo movie to date, which is actually funny, because he actually had a really minor role in the Solo movie. I don't know Avengers, honestly. So anyways. Yay. And then they come in, and we don't know where they're going. Oh, no. And then there's the desert planet again, and they're apparently doing, like, pod racing now? I have no idea what's going on with that. So then there's them on some kind of skiff out here. I don't know why C-3PO's there. I don't know. Then there's an A-Wing. Whoop, hang on. Now this is actually one of the ones that I haven't seen anyone talk about. This is a very quick scene. Now, let's turn down the speed here for this. So as you can kind of see here, that is clearly an A-Wing, and that is clearly a Star Destroyer right behind it. Do you see that? Now that's interesting in its own right. I'm not actually sure why that's there, because the First Order doesn't use classic ISDs. And that is very clearly a classic ISD. You can tell it right there. You can see the bridge. See it? So, why is there an old ISD in this? I know this is strange. I haven't heard anyone else talk about this. I'm sure someone has, because I'm sure people have analyzed this way more than me. But I haven't heard anyone else talk about this. It's very strange. Anyway, so there's an old ISD. And there's an A-Wing. Now, I'll just go and give my opinion on this very briefly. They're probably going to show the big battle over Jakku, the battle that ended the Galactic Civil War in the AU. That's the most likely thing to happen there. Let's just be honest about it. I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing, because we've actually already kind of seen part of that in Star Wars Battlefront 2 EA. But, you know. Now, everyone has pointed this out. That's the medal from A New Hope. Probably Leia holding it, or actually more accurately, a woman who is acting as Leia, who will not get credit as Leia. Okay, don't know what else to say about that. Then we have the footage that was originally filmed for Force Awakens. We have a very unique situation here, because there actually is a fairly decent amount of footage that was filmed for Carrie Fisher in The Force Awakens that never got into the film, and they're using a lot of that to have Carrie Fisher be in this one, so we'll see. I'm just going to leave it in slow motion. Makes it easier to go through some of this stuff. You'll notice R2 isn't here. I only point that out because I find it strange. We got 3PO, we got Chewie, we got Dio. We've got Finn, we've got Poe, and some woman, I don't know who that is. I'm kidding. And then we've got that. Now, I'm going to go and be honest, this confuses me more than anything else. So, So obviously that's the Death Star wreckage. We're not sure which Death Star. And we're not sure where it would be. It basically can't be the Death Star 1. The only way for the Death Star 1 to fall into would be into Yavin, which was a gas giant. So, probably not the Death Star 1. So it would have to be the Death Star 2, which was an absolutely gargantuan machine, and therefore pieces of it would have survived to fall and plummet into Endor. Now, if it's the second Death Star, and that's Endor, then I'm pretty sure the Ewoks are now extinct. No, I am 100% serious. I'm not actually trying to make a joke here. I want you to picture that size of debris colliding with a planet. If you hit Earth with a city-sized thing, that might actually kill all of us. That is the Death Star 2, which is a stupidly huge thing. I only bring that up because I'm not sure they're going with that. Like, basically, because of that alone, it's entirely possible that that is not actually the Death Star 2. I don't know. We'll see. Endor does have several moons. There's some other ways this could work. That being said, I'm just going to go ahead and say something really quick. If this is the Forest Moon, if this is where the Ewoks lived, and the Ewoks are fine, I call bull. Because that's basically just tossing all concepts of logic and continuity out the window. And yeah, I know, this is Star Wars, which likes to toss things out the window, but really? Anyways, no one's ever really truly gone. And then, of course, we hear the iconic laugh. Misa Jar Jar Binks! Sorry. No, we hear Palpatine's laugh. And we know for absolute certainty that Ian McDiarmid is involved with the making of this film. They have been extremely overt and extremely obvious about that. So... Palpatine. Now, I actually have several rather complicated thoughts about this. There's the dumb title. And I want to talk about this. This is actually, if I'm being 100% blunt, the main reason we're discussing this during Loreweek is because of Palpatine. Because otherwise I could summarize my thoughts on this in like a minute or two, which I've kind of already done. How many of you guys have read the Dark Empire series? Honest question. I'm seeing a decent variety of answers here. Hang on, Hazardous, hang on. So, when Dark Empire first came out, you know what my reaction was? Of course you don't, because you're not me. No, my reaction was, yes! Because I liked Palpatine as a villain. And that meant I wanted to see more of him. Back when I was younger, I wasn't really thinking in the mindset of, you know, good creative design and good artistic work. Instead of just thinking that I want to see more of Palpatine, because I know Palpatine. Having gotten older, I now can acknowledge the idea that at certain points in times, characters need to leave a franchise, right? At some point, they do need to eventually retire, or die, or leave, right? Back as a kid, all I was thinking was, Palpatine. Having gone back and reanalyzed the Dark Empire series, because I've actually done that, and I still own all 3 comic series, I can say with definitiveness that I still think Dark Empire 1 is actually good. And I do mean that. But Dark Empire 2 is bad. And Dark Empire 3 is god-awful. In my opinion, obviously. And that's going back. That's with analysis mode on. The reason I say that is because Dark Empire 1 was a fairly thematically significant work that directly followed on the consequences of Return of the Jedi. Utilized Palpatine less as a character and more as a literal manifestation of the dark side. And it was an examination of between Luke and Leia and the way it was done and blah blah blah. There was some good stuff there. There's some legitimately good stuff. It is probably worth noting that the most interesting thing about Dark Empire 1 to me is that Palpatine was so powerful, he actually killed himself. Not on purpose, it's worth noting. but just because he lost control of his power, thanks to the fact that he could not comprehend the nature of the bond between Luke and Leia. Luke and Leia defeated Palpatine, and Palpatine defeated the Dark Empire. I was with that. I really was. Then Dark Empire 2 came along, and the next clone came out, along with several other new characters that showed up out of absolutely nowhere. That's true. They also set up Palpatine's return in the books. That is true. And then Dark Empire 2 was like, hey, and also we made a second Eclipse, and also the Galaxy Gun. And then Dark Empire 3 just... I can't. Now... yeah, go ahead, Max Time. It's also probably worth noting that there was, in the Dark Empire, like the book that I have, I forget what that's called. When you combine comics into a book, there's a term for that. Paperback or trayback or something like that. Anyways, in the Dark Empire book, there's also a decent chunk at the beginning of it that... yeah, no kidding, Braven. That just discusses the lore. Like the background and the story and the concepts of the Force. There's like actual entries from Palpatine's own like journal entries talking about the nature of the dark side and how to use the dark side. It was some good world building, is what I'm trying to say. Although that was kind of torpedoed from 2 and 3. Now, my reason for bringing all of this up is going back, bringing Palpatine back kind of feels like a misstep, but only in the way that they did it. It is my opinion, and this is when I'm going to have people actually hate me for this. You're funny, Max Time. But I think bringing Palpatine back within the central story arc of the 9 films makes sense, and I would do it too. Now, let me explain that for a second. Let me explain that. Palpatine is the villain of Star Wars. He is the villain of the Star Wars films, right? He is the central main antagonist for the actual for the films. I don't know how better to put that. There are other villains and other antagonists for the shows and for the books and for the comics and for the games, but really Palpatine really is the central nexus point of the 9 films, in my opinion. Everything that happened really happened because of him and around him, and in some cases as a direct byproduct of him. Everything about Darth Vader, Palpatine. Everything about the Clone Wars, Palpatine. Everything about the Galactic Empire, Palpatine, right? It is my opinion that he should actually be the kind of thing to conclude here. Now, that being said, rewind a second. We have to acknowledge a truth. Return of the Jedi had some fairly significant flaws to it. Right? I enjoy Return of the Jedi. Don't mistake me. But it is a flawed film. There are some fairly significant flaws with it. And having studied the behind-the-scenes of Return of the Jedi more than once, I would say that it is my opinion that the central reason why there are so many flaws with Return of the Jedi is because it was never intended to be the end of the films. It was just kind of turned into that. Most of you probably know, back in the day, Episode 6 was supposed to be the end, or excuse me, was not supposed to be the end. They already had 7, 8, 9 already planned. And there were already documents and drafts for 7, 8, and 9. Lucas already had an idea where he was going with the story. There were characters he hadn't even introduced yet when it came to 7, 8, and 9. And the entire idea was that Vader was going to kind of bow out in 6, and Palpatine was going to come more to the rise in 7, 8, and 9. That was always the intent. Thing is, Lucas had a lot of garbage happening to him in real life as well as professionally at that point in history, okay? Now, I don't want to go too much into that, but I mean, you know, the divorce. The divorce just nuked him, really. And he just got really burnt out, and he got really stressed, and he actually had to start seeing a psychologist, and blah, 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 blah. And long and the short of it is, he basically said, we're cutting it off. He thought that Return of the Jedi was going to be the last Star Wars film he was ever going to make. He thought that was the end of the series. So he basically took, yes, you're right, Sci-Fi Dorito, he basically took what was going to be 7, 8, and 9, and just kind of smashed it into 6. And to be perfectly blunt, it shows. You remember in Empire Strikes Back, there is another? That wasn't actually referring to Leia, because Leia wasn't the other yet. That was referring to the other character who was supposed to be in 7, 8, and 9. Now, whether this ever would have been a good or a bad thing doesn't matter. But why am I bringing this up now? Well, because this is one of the great truths and tragedies of making fiction, is that the overwhelming majority of fiction wasn't planned out. Most fiction is mostly just looking at stuff and making something and then, oh, it was successful, so now I could do more, right? For the most part, fiction isn't planned out. Babylon 5 is a precious rare exception, and even Babylon 5 wasn't fully planned out. There were still improvs going on along the way, especially Season 5, but let's not get into that. So, in other words, let me rewind back to my... I know several people asked me questions. Hold on to this for a second. I want to get this thoughts up before I lose it. Getting back to this, if this was all planned, Palpatine should have had a presence in 7, should have had a distinct presence in 8, and should have been concluded in 9. Now, none of that happened because Palpatine died in 6, right? So what we have to do now is we have to deal with the fact that they didn't plan a 7, an 8, and a 9 when they made 6. We have to adapt. We have to retcon. We have to try and figure out what we can. I still firmly believe that Palpatine should be in the sequel trilogy, for the reasons I've already said, for the reasons I've already mentioned. I don't have anything else to add to that. But if we're going to do that, the only way to do that is to basically employ some kind of retcon. Because Palpatine died back in 6. Now, how do we do that? There is obviously the Dark Empire method. Now, for those of you not fully cognizant of the Dark Empire, the way this worked is that Palpatine had, back in the EU, covered the way to... Lol, Rex. Palpatine had mastered the ability to, with great effort and work, transfer the life of one person into another person. Now, this wasn't just with the clone thing. He actually did this several times with several characters. The most obvious example that comes to my mind is Bevel Lemelisk, the designer of the original Death Star. Someone who he would literally torture by killing in a horrible way, and then after he died, or as he was dying, he would transfer his life into a new body. Essence transfer. This is one of Palpatine's shticks, right? Thus, the idea of essence transfer, again, this is going off of the EU, but the essence transfer thing was actually reasonably well established. It was not just an isolated incident. Now, that being stated, the most obvious way of Palpatine enduring is for him to go ahead and essence transfer into a clone. We know clones exist in the AU and the EU, or into another body or into whatever. There are plenty of ways to do that. Option number 2, holocrons. Now, to my knowledge, they haven't really codified how holocrons work in the AU, so whatever. But in the EU, the way holocrons work is they can basically actually have what is basically a duplicate of the personality of an individual in the holocron, along with their knowledge, obviously. So if you were to load up a holocron of, to use a direct example, Revan, which is actually something that's happened, or whatever, then you would actually, all of Revan's knowledge that Revan put into the holocron would be there, but they would also have to deal with Revan's personality. So Revan, it's not like a book. It's more like a book with an attitude, if that makes any sense. So it's entirely possible that there is a Palpatine holocron, which in other words would mean that Palpatine did die. It's just that his holocron lives on. Option 3. I don't remember, Dream Whisperer. Hi, Mighty Mage. Option 3. It is entirely possible that... So Palpatine in the AU was pushing for godhood. More or less literal godhood. This is why he was going after that stupid thing in Rebels and trying to control time and all sorts of things like that. I point that out because Palpatine never tried to ascend to a new dimension and control the whole galaxy simultaneously in the EU. That was other people's purview. But in the AU, that's definitely something he had been pushing for. So it's entirely possible that he basically Horcruxed himself, to just copy-paste the idea here. That he actually was slicing off either parts of himself or personality bits or programs or whatever into a droid or into a clone or into a slave or into a person or whatever, right? Kind of the same general thing that Darth Idiot was doing back in Tour of the Sith Emperor. Vishay, I know that's not how it's pronounced, I don't care. How he was dumping pieces of himself into other people. Next possibility. It's entirely possible that he is a Force ghost. This is the vaguest possibility, which is why I mentioned it last, because the rules on Force ghosts when it comes to the AU are nowhere near as codified as they were back in the EU. We knew pretty well how Force ghosts work back in the EU. There were plenty of Sith Force ghosts. There were plenty of Force ghosts who could still be active and still functional. There were plenty of Force ghosts who could actually use the Force and possess people and talk with people and blah, 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 blah. So all of that was all possible in the EU. I mean, Exar Kun. I don't even have to go to the Tor example. Exar Kun, you know. Whether or not that is true in the AU, to my knowledge, is something they've never actually codified. In fact, to my knowledge, there's basically no Force ghosts in the AU. Oh, I absolutely understand where you're coming from, Doctor Who. We'll see. So, of these options... Oh yeah, I suppose I should also mention what I personally consider to be the absolute least likely possibility, which is the idea that he just survived. That Palpatine just straight up lived and has been hanging out for the last 20 years or whatever. Or 30 years, excuse me. No. No. We'll see. I should probably mention, several people keep bringing up the vaporized thing. It's probably worth noting, in the AU that was explained. To my knowledge, in the excuse me, I'm saying this wrong. In the EU there was plenty of explanations for Palpatine and the vaporization, which actually wasn't a vaporization, and blah, blah, blah. In the AU, to my knowledge, they've never even touched on that. They just completely ignored all of it. So I have no idea if they're going to use any of that or if any of it matters. It's his twin, I knew it! No. Of these options, I suppose, here's the question for you guys. Now, let's assume Palpatine is in it, because Ian McDiarmid is playing in this film. Like, we know that for absolute 100% certainty. So, I suppose I should also mention the final option, flashback. You know, there you go, boom. Of these options, which do you prefer the most? Like, which is the most acceptable for you guys? I mean, I will go on record as saying that Darth Maul surviving Episode 1 was stupid. But I was totally okay with it because of what they did with it. None is not on the table, Mike Romano. I'm seeing some interesting... I'm seeing a lot of variety in answers here, which is kind of what I was expecting. What's your idea, Salder? I'm just reading. Don't mind me. You guys are typing pretty fast. I'm just trying to keep up here. Oh yeah, I suppose there's actually like what up to a sixth option at this point. It could be part of a Force vision. We know that Force visions are not real. That they're a well-established part of both the EU and the AU. So, you know, it's entirely possible that it could just be a Force vision. Didn't even occur to me. It's basically the same as a flashback at that point. It's not Palpatine. At that point, it's Bob. It's nothing. I knew it! Now I'm going to go ahead and say, I suppose I should answer my own question back. I didn't like how The Last Jedi ended. At all. In fact, I despised it. I'm not saying I despised the whole film, don't jump down my throat, but I despised the ending. I felt like The Last Jedi ended really, really poorly, in my opinion. Not only did it, in my opinion, fly in the face of the themes the film itself was trying to establish, but basically it ended in kind of just a meandering pseudo-to-be-continued sort of a thing. And it also, in my opinion, ended in a way that didn't really set up anything going forward. Now, that... Basically, the reason I bring this up is if you came to me and said, Lore, you're now in charge of writing episode 9. My first thought is, wait. No. No, I don't want this job. No, the Force Kid thing? I'm sorry, I wasn't even thinking about the Force Kid thing. It's not even on my list. I don't care about the Force Kid. Okay, that makes sense, Salder. I'm with you. No, I'm talking about the First Order wins. Kylo Ren is super evil. Rey is a Jedi. And they escape. And the bad guys win. Like, that's the ending. And it's just, okay. And we're right back to square one. History repeats itself. And I really do honestly say, if you walked up and you put a gun to my head and said, you have to write episode 9, I would really struggle with that. I have no idea how to continue that story. This is relevant because if you came to me and said, Lore, you have to write episode 9, and Palpatine has to be in it, my first thought would be, but you didn't... Okay. Nope, you're not going to trick me to talk about episode 8. You're not going to do it, Goldark. You want my episode 8 thoughts? Go see my rumination on it. Now... But the only reason I bring it up at all is because I needed to talk about 9. To be 100% blunt, in my opinion, 9 should not follow 8. Or 7. I know that sounds extremely strange to say, but let me try and clarify what I mean by that. For all of the gunk that could be thrown at them, episode 1, 2, and 3 were a cohesive narrative. It was a cohesive narrative with flaws and issues and problems, but the whole of the fabric of 1 through 3 made sense. Like there was a logical thread of the story of Anakin Skywalker, his fall to Darth Vader, the Clone Wars, the rise of Palpatine. All of that was one cohesive thing against all three, throughout all three. Now, 4 through 6 don't really follow much of a thread, but at the same time, they still kind of do. And in 4 through 6, it was forced because it was adapted. But 4 through 6 still follow a degree of a thread. It is the Galactic Civil War. It is the conflict of the Rebels versus the Empire, the rise of Luke Skywalker to becoming a Jedi, the establishment and redemption, that's a whole other topic, of Darth Vader, blah blah blah, right? 7 and 8, in my opinion, have nothing to do with each other, other than the fact that they happen to include several similar characters. I personally see no thematic or significant narrative connection between 7 and 8, which brings me to 9. This is why I say that 9 shouldn't follow 7 and 8, because they already don't. It's also true, 7 and 8 were literally like a day apart, too. Now, Javez points out something that is absolutely true and should be mentioned. There is a narrative thread to the sequel trilogy. It's just not in the films. All of the detail, all of the actual thematic following through, all of the logic and sense make and blah 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 is actually in the books and the comics. There is a story arc thread for the sequel trilogy. It's just not in the films, in my opinion. I am all for an extended universe. I am all for stretching out continuity and having threads of ideas and concepts between works. It's just, in my opinion, too little of it is in Episode 7 and in Episode 8. Regardless of how good or bad or any thoughts I have on 7 or 8, I very firmly believe more of it should be in the films, and it isn't. How many of you even know about the multiple factions of the Republic, just from the films? How many of you know about the significance of Jakku, just from the films? How many of you understand what happened exactly with regards to Kylo and his falling to Snoke, just from the films? How many of you know where Snoke came from, just from the films? How many of you know what the First Order is, just from the films? Like, you get my point? All of this is stuff that has been explained, and exists, and is written. But it's not in the films. It is occasionally hinted at. There are occasional hints and ideas of this. I mean, we do see the ruins of the Star Destroyer and AT-AT, not AT&T, on Jakku. We do get bits and pieces, but the actual narrative isn't there. Which brings me to Episode 9. I would have Episode 9... there's probably a proper narrative term for this. Yes, Skullvike. I would have Episode 9 be a sequel to Episode 6. What I mean by that is I would have the actual narrative of the story that's already been written and is already there, that happened in the wake of Episode 6, and the Multiple Republics thing, and the First Order thing, and all that crap. I mean, how many of you even know what Operation Cinder is? Because it's not in the films. I would have that be in 9. I would have 9 actually conclude the events of 6 using the characters of 7 and 8. In other words, there's a term for that, and I can't think of what it is, but it's basically like you have two branching narratives, and then they kind of cohese at one point. Just, right? It's like a double sequel or something. I forget the proper term for that. Neverwinter Nights did that. Neverwinter Nights, Hordes of Shadows of Undead, Hordes of the Underdark was story, story, story. Make sense? That's what I would do with Episode 9. I don't even want to get into Operation Cinder right now. I don't. Now, that being said, that still leaves us with a core question. How the hell do you do Palpatine there? Personally, I like the holocron idea best, with a caveat. I like the idea of Palpatine's holocron being so much worse than anyone else's holocron. Basically, I mentioned Horcruxes earlier. I would rather that be a more literal connection. For those of you who aren't actually aware of how Harry Potter works, a Horcrux is a piece of someone's soul. However, in Voldemort's case, those pieces of his soul were so powerful and so influencing that they literally had the ability to influence, mind control, and otherwise affect people around them, with the eventual point of actually possessing someone to basically make a new Voldemort. Now, that last part never happened, but that's the kind of idea I would go with. Make this holocron basically be Palpatine 2, but still a legitimate threat. Make it be not all of the power, but still a substantial influence with the Force because of just the nature of Palpatine. Effectively, what I'm saying is basically kind of an in-between between a hologram and a ghost. Something that allows him to still have direct and tangible influence on the world around him. Just, it's not actually Palpatine. Does that make any sense? That's the direction I would go. Now, Palpatine having trained Snoke, I'd be okay with that. Although Snoke's own backstory is just kind of, like, I don't care for it all that much. But it would to Coda, kind of. But yeah. Yeah, his overall plot would probably be to effectively possess someone. To kind of restore himself. But, and of course, the idea would be he would be going after Rey. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's just such an obvious goal. Rey is already someone who has a decent amount of raw power with the Force, and the end, right? The only other person he really would have that's feasible to go after would be Kylo. The thing is, I don't know why, but narratively speaking, I like the idea of Palpatine going after Rey more than Kylo, because to me that just makes a little bit more thematic sense, even if it doesn't make more literal sense. What? No, Anthony. Let's just go with no on that one. Yes, I have, Javez. In fact, I'm one of those people who thought Rey was a Palpatine back before Episode 8 came out. But anyways, the Broom Kid must be protected. I like the idea of Kylo being envious of it. I like the idea of Kylo being basically he's in charge of the First Order, and he's got all this Force power, and he is still after all of this, he's still considered second best, right? Like, something about that concept just appeals to me as a writer. And the idea of... When did Yoda throw on lightning as a force? Oh, with the tree. Right. Anyways, I also like the idea of basically using Kylo to manipulate Rey. And, of course, it is my opinion that Palpatine would probably rather have the discipline of Rey. Remember, Palpatine, for all of his things, in both the EU and the AU, he really has a lot of mental discipline. He has a very precise mind. He probably doesn't want to be some big, brusque person like Kylo, right? He doesn't want that as a body. No, what he wants for Kylo is for Kylo to either be his apprentice or to simply not have an apprentice at all. One of the two. So that's what I would do. Palpatine going... I would have Palpatine be a major figure here. I would have... The only catch here is, why are they going to find this freaking Death Star? And the answer to that, to me, would be, I would have Kylo be the bait to draw Rey to the Death Star, leading to Rey encountering Palpatine. I would have that be basically in, like, the first act. Like, that'll be one of the first things that happens. Now, what would JJ do? Well, he'd put a lot of lens flares. I'm sorry. No, I'll tell you exactly what JJ Abrams would do, because this is his style legitimately. He's a very visual director, and he doesn't think about continuity or logic at all. So whatever's going to happen is not going to make sense, and it's going to be very flashy and very well designed visually. And it's also going to probably have a twist, because JJ Abrams is in love with twists. Seriously, listen to him talk about the mystery box concept sometimes. And so there's going to be some kind of big twist, and the twist is twisty. I don't know. And yeah, there's going to be some kind of mystery box, and whatever it is, it's going to be really obvious. And we're all going to have seen it coming from a mile away. Like we always do. I'm sorry. I sound like I'm being negative of JJ. I actually am probably more positive towards JJ Abrams than most people I know. Because I do think he has several significant talents when it comes to visual direction. I think his visual style is legitimately excellent, other than the lens flares. I think he knows how to use camera, and I think he knows how to pull energy into a scene very well. I think he has no idea how to do a script, and I think he's way too in love with his mystery box concept. And I think he is not a good anything other than a visual director, basically. Yeah, I don't think he's a good writer at all. No, I've seen Lost, thanks. Zack Snyder. Actually, that's not a bad parallel, really. I will agree with that. What is the mystery box in 9 going to be? I mean, I don't know. No, what do you want to bet? It's going to be like the whole... What do you want to bet? I'm going to say it right now. I'm going to laugh if I'm right about this in like 8 months or whatever. What do you want to bet that the whole film, it's going to be like, Palpatine is back. And then the twist is it was just a hologram or a recording or a droid or something. That would actually be really funny to me. Just at the end of the film, they finally enter the Death Star. It's actually the end scene of the film. They enter the Death Star and there's just a hologram. And they just smash it. The dark side has finally died. And then there's a parade and Yub Yub plays. Oh, I hope I'm wrong. God, Max time. And all it did was laugh. Ian McDiarmid was hired to do this, to kind of lounge in his chair and laugh, and they just recorded 5 minutes of him just doing his best evil laughs in full makeup, you know. Oh yeah, I suppose I should mention the other thing here real quick. God, we've been talking for 2.5 hours. Jesus Christ, we may skip questions today. Thank you very, very much, Letterallis. As ever, much appreciate your support. Thank you. Would you like to put that towards something? For those of you not aware, they've already announced that they don't have any film plans for the next year or two after Episode 9 comes out. Now, I've already talked about that. Like, I've already kind of addressed that, but in case I didn't make that very clear, the reason for that is because they are focusing on show. Thank you again, Letterallis. I'll jot that down later then. Actually, no, I'll jot it down right now. I know exactly where I want to put that. There we go. That makes sense. I mean, them pushing television makes sense. Them pushing away from films makes sense. As weird as this may sound, and I've said this many times, film is a very inherently limiting fictional medium. I've said this many times in the last couple of years. And it makes more sense to me to make film, to basically artificially make a film more of an event, and then focus on really developing more of the shows, or the games, or the books, or whatever. What's my gut say about Episode 9? Meh. I'm not particularly negative towards it, but I'm not really all that positive towards it. If I'm being 100% honest, I expect to be net neutral on Episode 9. We'll see. I expect it'll be very visually interesting, because it's J.J. Abrams, and he is really good at that. I stand by that point firmly. Even Into Darkness, which is a film that had a god-awful script, was a very visually interesting film. Oh yeah, and they are still working on the other 2 film projects that Rian Johnson's doing and the Game of Thrones people are doing. Those are still in the works, just they're being pushed back. Well, I talked about that earlier, Leander, but yeah. You liked it? Okay, I'm not going to question it. I'm not going to question it. Into Darkness had good elements. It wasn't a lamentation. I just think the script was dog crap. Anyway, so... God, I still have 3 Tumblr questions. What's funny is I looked at the news list. I actually have closer to 8 Tumblr questions, but I brought it down to 3 because I figured that there's no way we'll have time to cover all 8. And here we are. I haven't even gotten the questions yet. Let's do this. Let's do this. So the first question is video game failures. Now I know what this question is off the top of my head. Give me a second while I get a timestamp and everything here. So, random question for you guys. What is the most embarrassing video game fail you've ever had? Where the heck is my current topic? There it is. I'm just trying to find this. Yes, Benedict Cumberbatch, who was an excellent con, in my opinion. Define failure. There you are, playing Sekiro, and then you die! That's a failure. Or is it? I know mine. I've had the answer to this ready to go. I'm curious of your guys's. And again, it's your most embarrassing one. So, not necessarily something where it's like, oh man, this fight is so hard. It's more like, whoops, how did I fall to that? Right? What's your most embarrassing video game failure, Saldir? Or, I'll give you a recent example. I've been playing one of the Marios, New Super Luigi U, in my spare time, which at this point means like when I'm going to the bathroom, and like going through, and I'm like making the jumps and I just like screw up on a jump that's really easy. There's nothing hard about it. I just screwed up the jump like 3 times in a row, and I have no idea why. Now, granted, I was usually playing, you know, with my glasses off, but still, what? How did I fail at this? It's embarrassing, right? I know exactly my answer, though. So, and I'll talk about this story again when we get to the Zelda lore run, but... Oh, I'm sorry, Micromono. So there I was, playing Zelda Twilight Princess. Now, granted, we were on a CRT TV, and it was the GameCube version, so it's all blurry and unclear, but I was going through the water dungeon, which is the third dungeon in the game, and I had to go someplace, and so I get to the point where it feels like I should go forward, there's nothing there. I'm like, okay. So I went back through the entire dungeon, room by room, trying to figure out how to go forward. Now, this is back when I was backseat running. My sister was sitting right next to me when I was playing. And so we're trying to figure out where to go. And so finally, after basically I hit this point, and I could visually tell you it's over here. And then I go down, then I go up, and there's the central area, then we go down, then there's all this stuff over here. And then I go all the way back. I go through basically the entire dungeon a full total of 3 times, and I get back to the point where I feel like I should go forward. And I was like, there's nothing here. And she says, why don't you go up the ladder? What ladder? That one. Where? To the left. That's actually where the left meme started, for those of you who remember that. Because there was just a ladder there that I literally couldn't see. Now, granted, I have color distinction problems, and it was a CRT TV, and it was the GameCube version, and blah, blah, blah. But she could see it. There's just a ladder. And I remember sitting there. I've got the GameCube controller, man. I'm just sitting there like... Walk up the ladder. Sure enough, that was exactly where I needed to go. Whoops. Yeah, it's true. I couldn't see the frickin' point in RDR2. I literally couldn't see it. Couldn't see it at all. Oh, geez, CapDoc. Yeah. Trying to get to Wall Street. They're trying to get to Wall Market and not realizing you crossed the pipe. Yeah. Not really, Baron. I mean, every now and again she says left to poke fun at me, but that's about... No, the thing she always makes fun of me for is actually more embarrassing than that. I'm not going to tell you it. Don't ask. Oh yeah, that's another one. So, I'm trying to remember the game. I don't remember which game it is. But it's a game... I feel like it's an MMO. Where, if you double tap, you do like a dodge roll. Okay? And so I like to do a lot of really precise maneuvering. Which means, like, forward, forward, left, 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 forward, left, left, forward. You know, like, really trying to get into exactly that position. And what would happen repeatedly, and I wish I remembered the game, but what would happen repeatedly is I'd be trying to get exactly in the right position. I would hit forward and then forward, like trying to nudge forward a bit, 2 times too quickly. And I would do this, so I'd be like, and I just dodge roll right off the jumping puzzle I'm doing. Oh, I'm sorry, Doctor. That's not really embarrassing, though, but I get you. Maybe it was Neverwinter. I don't remember. I feel like it was an MMO. It was a repeating problem. I had that problem, like, all over the place. It's year-round hazardous. Anyways, let's hit the next question. Let's kind of move forward here. How many of you guys like horror films or games? Sorry, horror games. Oops. Oh my God, Twister. Actually, the first time I ever played Secret of M. Orleander, which was a rental, I couldn't get to the first dungeon either. I got completely lost. I ended up returning it because I was expecting, you know, Secret of Mana. Because I'm a dumbass. Imagine if you are a security guard at Arkham Asylum. The Joker has escaped from his cell. Your job is to survive and keep him from escaping. See, Ron Rax, how do you design this game? Honestly, I feel like this game just kind of sells itself, I'm being completely blunt. But I know what you're thinking. Well, hang on, how can a security guard match up to the Joker? Well, oh, absolutely, Dakota. The catch for me, a game like this couldn't be like Alien Isolation, for example. I don't think that would work. The only way the Alien Isolation thing would work is if you are just playing Alien Isolation, except it's the Joker instead of the alien, and you instead of Ripley, or whatever her name is. That's it. No, don't do that. Not only is that too easy, but no. No, what I would do is I would have it be basically you work as a security guard, But you have, I'm thinking something a little bit more XCOM based, if I'm being honest. Never, Saldir. Horror game. You're a guard. Stop the Joker from escaping. There you go, Saldir. Make it so that you have to work with other people. You have to. See you around Blue Wolf, Alex. Like, if you just try to go and fight the Joker, you're dead. Or if you try to go and deal with the Joker, you're dead. No, I would actually have it be, not like FNAF, but rather, actually kind of what Doctor Who mentions here, something more top-down. I was actually thinking something similar to, at least in interface, kind of like the old Overlord games. What's the name of that other franchise? The same thing. But, like, you're here, and you have to try and deal with this whole thing. And you have to manage contacting, like, actually successfully managing to contact other people, or failing at contacting other people and having to contact inmates and using inmates to your side, or failing at both and basically just enduring, trying to run. The idea here would be, no, not Tribes. The idea here, although I haven't played Tribes in a long time, it says you have to prevent Joker from escaping. If I'm being bold, I would go ahead and say I would make that an optional objective. I would make it so that the Joker escaping would be basically the bad ending, but it would still be a possible end to the game. Whereas keeping the Joker from escaping would be like the golden ending. That would be the hardest thing to do. Surviving would be the real trick. So, as you're moving through here, you would encounter instances and circumstances, byproducts. Basically, the idea is that you'd be seeing a lot of the wake of the Joker, without seeing a lot of the Joker himself. Oh, also Mark Hamill would be voicing him. And so you would see the consequences of what he's doing, and they wouldn't always be static. Basically, I would design the Joker's AI, as weird as it may sound, so that he has the possibility of taking several different paths, and each of the paths he takes basically would have pre-manually generated or pre-scripted events which would happen that are consequences of him taking that path to escape from the asylum. Let's just say the Joker. Let's just limit it to the Joker for this style here. Although expansions or DLC adding other villains is totally feasible. But for the purpose of this discussion, let's just limit it to just the Joker. So the general idea is if he actually manages, if you catch up to him sufficiently, then you're probably in trouble unless you have prepared for it. As in, you've got like a small group ready to go. And there's always the chance that some of the guards are people who have been bribed by the Joker, or are corrupt themselves, or are insane themselves. Basically the idea here is you would want to stack the deck in your favor as much as possible before you ever actually confront the Joker. Because even when you do, you by yourself can't stop him. And you with a group might not stop him. Make sense? Also, of course, there would probably be some kind of penalty or just a bad ending for actually killing the Joker. And when I say bad ending, that would basically be the secret ending. I'm dead serious. The secret ending would be successfully killing the Joker. And you'd kill him, and it would be like this super happy ending, right? Like, everyone is better. The asylum starts turning itself around. Crime in Gotham plummets. Batman feels better. Just everything would be great, right? But anyways. But yeah, that's the overall structure of how I would do the game. And then you're in a padded cell. But the world's better. Bruce's parents just come back to life. No, Batman is just, he starts smiling all the time. He and Diana finally tie the knot. But yeah, no, I would have the Joker constantly trying to stack the deck in his favor by working with or manipulating inmates and guards and traps and just all sorts of crap. And you would basically have to do the general same thing. Because remember, the Joker's just a guy. And so are you. So, if you just approach the Joker, he will have all of the cards and you will have none. There would also be built-in cheats, so you can just walk up and kill the Joker. And if you kill the Joker in like 5 minutes, there'd be an achievement for that. something. The achievement would be called something like Batman retires, deemed unnecessary to Arkham Guard. You know. Interesting style. I was actually thinking something similar. Like basically a sanity meter for basically every character in the game. I mean that sincerely. Like all the guards, all the inmates, and yourself, you would all have basically a sanity meter. And the further down it goes, the more susceptible they are to just going or actually working with the Joker. And of course, if your sanity runs out, that would actually be effectively your health. Like functionally, even though there are ways for you to actually die. If you get shot once, you're dead. So technically you don't have HP in the traditional sense. Your actual HP from a gameplay sense would be your sanity. That's how I would do that. I do remember that, Dakota. I remember that very distinctly. The Joker is Cthulhu. I mean, Emperor Joker? I remember that. No, I would have an option to kill yourself rather than be arrested. Batman comes in and breaks every bone in your body, but he doesn't kill you. It's very important, because Batman doesn't kill. Anyways, ideally, I would probably have a lot of different possible ways for this to end. And you guys have already mentioned most of them. Like, you kill the Joker, you die. You kill the Joker, you go back in. You stop the Joker, that's probably the best ending before Bats shows up. You fail to stop the Joker, but you delay him enough that Bats shows up. You fail to stop him entirely, and he just gets out. You follow the Joker, you become one of his new minions. You become the new Joker. You know, blah, 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 blah. I think a lot of ways, they could go a lot of different ways. Who would I do after the Joker? I mean, Harley Quinn is probably the most obvious answer, because a lot of good stuff has been done with her character over the years. I also have to admit, however, that for me, I like the idea of going in the direction of something a little bit... no, I'm just going to go with Harley Quinn or Scarecrow, because, I mean, it's one of the two, right? And you guys are saying Scarecrow, too. Someone else who's basically the same general approach. The difference is Scarecrow would be harder because he would actually have the gas, and he would use the gas. And the gas would be like your sanity meter just goes. Ugh. I would probably have an additional mechanic for the gas that if you do something, I don't know what, but basically you could endure the gas attack, and if you do, you actually gain some sanity back for having managed it. And then it does less damage to you later on, like you gain a resistance to the gas. But if you get gassed in a bad way, that's probably just game, you know? I was thinking Two-Face, admittedly, but doing Two-Face is going to be kind of tricky, because if you're actually in Arkham, Two-Face doesn't really have a lot going for him, per se. Hard mode is Joker and Scarecrow. That sounds insane. I was actually thinking Hush, because Hush, the way Hush would work is, Hush would effectively be like, what's the name of the... There's a whole... Hush would be Secret Hitler. So, the idea... I know that's a dumb name, but there's a lot of games of that type. And if you don't know what I mean by that, it's a game, it's usually a board game or a party game, where there's like 5 of you, right? And one of you is the traitor. And none of you know who the traitor is, so you have to kind of figure out who the traitor is. That's kind of... Yeah, social deduction. Thank you, that's what it's called, social deduction. That's how I would do Hush, if I was going to include him. There would just be there would be a bunch of NPCs, and randomly the game would decide which one is Hush. And you would have to try and figure it out and deduce it, right? That sounds kind of awesome to me. Because the whole point then would be, there would probably be another villain, probably the Joker, who you're still fighting against, but also one of the people on your side is Hush. And so now you have the extra objective of trying to deal with Hush and figure out who it is, while still dealing with the Joker, or Scarecrow, or whatever, right? And yeah, Mafia and Secret Werewolf. Social deduction is the term. That was the term I was trying to think of. Now, Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy feels like, gameplay-wise, she would basically play the same as Scarecrow. She catches you, you're frickin' gone, right? Like, that's it. The catch would be, I'm not sure what else to do to vary the gameplay style of Ivy versus Scarecrow. Riddler? What I would like to do most about Riddler, I wouldn't have Penguin be part of this. Penguin's another thing. I feel like he is a misused character, and he shouldn't even be in Arkham. Riddler, on the other hand, I like the idea of Riddler functionally serving the same presence he did back in Arkham City. He's not really the focus, you're not really after them. It's more like he's a mini-game on the side. And, like, you can actually go to the Riddler's cell. Like, hey, and the Riddler will be like, well, figure this thing out, or prove your intelligence on this thing, and if you do it right, I'll give you a clue. And you know, whatever it is would be trying to lead you in a specific direction, something like that. I don't know. I feel like there's other things you could do with the Riddler rather than even having him in this game. So I'm not sure I'd have him at all. But at best, I would have him be like a side thing. But it turns out he actually was the one who used the pool to make Clayface come back, and blah, 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 blah. Anyways. So, last question, and then I have one last thing to talk about. Real quick. Let's move on. How many of you guys like Star Trek? God, we're almost up to 3 hours. Jesus. I should have known as soon as episode 9 thing happened. This would be a long Loreweek. I knew it, Sildeer! That's why you run a game set in it, because you want to destroy the setting. Hang on, let me... My thoughts to my thoughts. Oh, right. How many of you have seen Spock's Brain? It's an episode of the original series. By the way, final episode of Star Trek Discovery Season 2 coming out soon. Also, how many of you guys psyched for tonight's Game of Thrones? Like, I admittedly don't care personally, but I know the whole reason my friend Gary will not be on tonight is because he's going to be watching Game of Thrones. Brain and Brain! What is Brain? So, Retu wins all the internets. Spock's Brain is an episode of the original series that is bad. Let's just start with that, for those of you who haven't seen it. I personally don't think it's the worst episode of TOS. It tends to get a lot of attention as the worst episode of TOS, but I don't think it deserves it. It's just obviously bad, but also extremely cheesy and extremely silly. How silly? I want you to imagine that this has like 5 buttons on it, okay? Now I'm going to control Spock with this device. His whole body, every function, with 5 buttons. Spock's Brain is one of the times when the original series goes into science rather than anything that actually approaches sense. It is hilarabad. Also, Chekhov almost dies from, or no, Sulu almost dies from freezing to death. So that's nice. Now, the reason that, so the actual question, let's move forward. The actual question is, you are now a script doctor. Your challenge is fix Spock's brain. How do you do it? I'm sure most of you know what script doctors are, so I'm not going to explain that. How do we fix Spock's brain? Now, right off the bat, I'm going to say 2 quick things. There are 2 possibilities I think we could go in when it comes to Spock's brain. Option 1, try to actually turn it into a legitimately serious story. Option number 2, just completely give up on that and make it ridiculous. What do you think? Which direction should we go in? Now, obviously, if we're going serious or ridiculous, we have to stick with the core premise. An alien race shows up, steals Spock's brain in order to use it in order to power their city because they are a degenerative society which no longer has the ability to think or function for themselves, so they rely on stealing other people's brains in order to run their supercomputers, which basically run their society. Also, I suppose we should add the gender thing, even though it's stupid. I don't even want to talk about the gender thing, but whatever. There are other ways to control men. This is the plot. This is the premise, I'm telling you. See, the women are all stupid in the episode, but that's okay, because the men are all stupid in the episode. I'm not actually kidding. The women are all basically brain dead. Like I said, completely degenerate society. But they live in paradise because of the computer stuff. The men live topside in the frozen wastes and are only used as slave labor. They are also basically cavemen. So, how will we control the men without the pain? Anyways, I'm sorry. So, if I'm being completely honest, while I do believe that this could be turned into a serious episode, that would be a challenge. A really, really interesting challenge. Ooh. So, instead, I would probably just go ahead and commit to making it silly. Just being like, yeah, okay, whatever. We'll just go with whatever on this one. See you around, Mighty Mage. And so, rather than actually... like, basically, I would try to strip out all the attempts at seriousness. Rather than making it a social commentary on the equality between genders, which is really badly done, I'd just make it so that there's no gender dichotomy at all. There's just men and women, and they're all in the degenerate. Just to get rid of the caveman side of things entirely. It's not even necessary. And just have everyone be in the brain-dead society. Kind of Logan's Runny, in that sense. And then I would absolutely keep the brain and brain scene. It's the best scene ever. I would talk to Bones, that is to say, Forrest Kelly, and be like, I need you to not act seriously for a second. Because if you remember the episode, he actually portrays his lines as if they're legitimate. Like, it's actually hard to explain, but he acts as if this is this big medical drama. Like, oh my god, his brain, Jim, it's gone. It could be anywhere in this whole wide galaxy. And he does it sincerely, and it just comes across as... you envy the man's craft. He did a good job of it. I'm not saying he didn't, but it is very jarring in the rest of the episode. It will expire 1 month after you did it, whatever that date is, Czar. Well, that would be where I would go if I was trying to make it serious, Silder. I mean, we could try to make that serious, but oh my gosh. We would have to add a number of elements to it. It would basically become a horror episode at that point. Because the entire idea would be... like, imagine for a moment they land on the planet where the brain stealers are from. And they make it into this... There's no security, right? There's no defenses. They just walk in. Guns ready. There's like empty corridors with like 2 or 3 robots just cleaning it up for them. And they're like... and the whole place is almost eerily silent and peaceful, right? There's nothing wrong, and they're just kind of walking through. And they see someone just kind of lounging in an area. There's just a lounge chair, and they're just lounging there like... they walk up, ha, we got you! What do you... where's Spock's brain? You know, huh? And they're on drugs. Like, they're literally on drugs. They're actually on psychotropics. Just, or not psychotropics, that's the wrong term. Feel goods. Uppers? I don't know. Whatever the term is for that. I'm not a drug person. So they're on the drugs, my fellow humans, and they're just, what? Because why bother, right? Just this whole a society that has no purpose, that everyone there is completely dedicated towards pure hedonism, right? Yeah, just everyone's in chemical bliss. No one cares about anything. No one does anything. I'd probably have most of these people be fat, too. And I know that sounds strange, but I point that out because you'd be surprised how few fat people are in Star Trek. It's actually quite rare. I would have these people be blobs, almost. Just incapable of caring enough to try with anything. Actually, yeah, kind of like Wall-E, but far more serious. Far worse than Wall-E actually does. You know, these human beings, or whatever they are, reduced to a state of nonsense, of non-being, basically. Yeah, actual muscle atrophy, actual decay, blah, blah, blah. And have them... oh my god, letter all this. There are several characters who are overweight in Star Trek. You know, people who have, like, what I've got going on, which is the belly. Most of them are admirals. One of them is Jonathan Frakes. No offense to the man. Yeah. And I was just like, and the problem is, in order to really go full tilt with it, the end conclusion would basically have to be, like, all right, well, we take the brain back, and then their society crumbles and dies. Because they can't take care of themselves anymore. You know, unlike Wall-E, where they just suddenly gain the ability to be people, because, you know, it's a Pixar film. No, instead, imagine if Wall-E was serious. And again, so they lose the controls, they lose the ship, and now they're all screwed, right? They all just kind of atrophy because they don't have the ability to do anything to take care of themselves. The end, they're all dead. Maybe some... You know, if you wanted to go uplifting, it would basically like, we need to send, you know, another ship out here immediately and evacuate these people. You know, try to help these people reacclimate to actual society, actual function as living beings. Who knows, maybe someday they might be able to regain the civilization they lost. Possibly, Doctor. But it is unlikely. Slowly pan out, Star Trek theme. The end. I hope that answers the question. I want to talk about one last thing, because we're getting the 3-hour mark here. We need to move on. Oh yeah, that's another thing. The massive drug withdrawal, which is funny because, you know, that's actually also a thing Star Trek has covered. I suppose that makes sense, Valerian. There was one... I just realized there's one overweight person I can think of. It was a Ferengi. In the episode Unification Part 2. It's the fat Ferengi who Riker goes and interrogates. And when I say fat, I mean he just... Oh god, I can't even do it. He just kind of shoves his stomach out a little bit. So I want to talk about extant. Did I just lowercase that? Really quick. No, that's not lowercase. Why is this... What the hell? Oh, that's why. There we go. Fixed. That's weird. A brainless era. Yeah! Social commentary, and we're out. So I wanted to talk to you guys about the extant thing. Now, first of all, how many of you... Like, I guess the first question I want to ask you guys is... Like, what do you think of when you think of that title, that word? Extant. There's a TV show called Extant? Is there really? Please tell me that's not true. It is! There's a TV... Is that current? It's ended 4 years ago. You've got to be kidding me. Yes, extant means to exist. It's an adjective. I mean, all the good names are taken. It's just, really? Yes, I have, Nicholas. Congratulations on the Garuda comms. Huh. Well, the problem is everything's taken. which just, that really sucks. Alright, that's all I needed to know. Apparently it's taken. That's the end of that. We'll come back to that next week. I'll just kind of erase that from the topic list. So that's the end of Loreweek. We could obviously discuss some other things, but we've been going for 3 hours, so